they have questions that you can either me or Jeanette can answer. But I'd like to rather sit down with Jeanette.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So anyway, as a presentation,
I think it's the same way
almost think
for a town that in the winter has like
from a
in the summer has
position standpoint, I think it's best if you actually are presenting to the public, not presenting to the
Oh yeah, no, it's still here. That's what the both.
I'm willing to also, I'm willing to answer some questions, but it's just, you'll probably say,
unless they is July.
that's a very interesting society.
He and the mayor don't get along.
What's the problem? You don't have to get details, it's more like, you're gonna have to get organized, you have to process. If it gets any deeper. I don't know what people think of this venture on this stage. Perfect. Get comfortable. You're so sit on the other side.
He's good.
That's where I just said, what do you want real hard at that?
No, I appreciate that. I mean, I don't have it craziness going on. What's up? Hey, Ted, how are you?
Good. Long time no see.
Yes. How are you? You too. How's Beach Retreat last night?
It's good. So it's like Friday.
Get you more from the house. Oh, is that the
That's why they hold me anyway. Just say they have 3.5 sometimes what we like, she just didn't see it.
I'm sure it's not all here.
It's very
Oh, okay, so it's Tom Fallon. Oh, no, that's a different one. Yeah. And he's not direct to give them proper
I'm also a nurse. That's how I
Years went on. This is higher.
It
was a wonderful. It's great to see you guys. It's always nice. Yeah. Josephine did a great presentation. Yeah.
Well, that would be great if.
Yeah, we just let her do it. She's there. She's
Right, I talked about, exactly, so I talked about
was a wonderful night.
And I didn't really want to go back and recreate anything, and he said, you know what, just leave it alone. I'll do the audit this year, just.
I would just say sometimes.
So I'm trying to go through with the banks.
I'm not exactly.
Okay, well, you're gonna, and so I'm just, I'm like, if I can do the same difference every month, I know, it's like, this is so much trying. I know, I just. Right, me too.
I didn't mention it.
Jeff's report, online, 4 pages. So sorry.
I done it.
No, it's good. A lot of it was, I already knew, but it was great, thank you.
Oh, yes, yeah, fascinating, right?
Yeah,
All the statistics.
Then I had 2 good people in here.
Yeah, I'm curious, I mean, there's like 6,000.
I was there every time. I was the one who cleaned up the event. Like for years,
What was that? Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Soon.
What? You talking to me?
Now, point of order.
What's your point of order now?
Point of order, it's 6:39.
We're waiting on, police attorney and John. Yeah, no, Manchester's a dream. He knows she's
Go 80 miles an hour down Route 34.
You know, I did. It's Wednesday.
It's a nice, still got really nice place.
Call this meeting to order, please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I wish to announce that the 48-hour notice is required under the Open Public Meetings Act was emailed to the Asbury Park Press, the Coast Star, and the New Coaster on December the 19th, 2024. That a copy has been placed on the bulletin board in the borough office and that a copy has been filed with the municipal clerk. As a courtesy to the public, this meeting may be attended via Zoom. If for any reason Zoom fails or is disconnected, the in-person meeting will continue without interruption and action can and will be taken, providing that there is an in-person quorum. Mr. Noble?
Here.
Mr. Greenblatt?
Here.
Mr. Nowicki?
Here.
Mr. Weber?
Here.
Mayor Gubitosi?
Here. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this evening. We are going to jump into item number 5 on our agenda, holding a public hearing and adoption for the 2025 budget amendment and municipal budget. And just by way of quick background, we've been through a process already to this point where we've introduced the budget, we've created an amendment to that budget, we had a public hearing on the amendment to the budget, our last meeting. So tonight, after this public hearing, we, the council, will take action whether or not to adopt the amended budget. So with that said, I'll make a motion to open the public hearing on 2025 municipal budget amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Greenblatt?
Yes.
Mr. Nowicki?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Gubitosi?
Yes. Anyone with any questions or comments about the 2025 amended budget? Mayor Fox.
Second. Larry Fox, 601 Monmouth Avenue. Good evening. I just had a couple of questions. Number one, has the fund balance analysis been completed? For this 25 budget, yes.
We have not completed a replenishment analysis at this point.
introduced the budget, or you introduced the budget 2 months ago, I guess it's always been a practice or requirement to do that. Why isn't it done, I guess is the question.
Part of the challenge has been the lack of data integrity that, that we started the process with. I actually responded to this question in a private email to Mr. Fehrenbach, where, to the best of our knowledge, from what data we can observe, we believe we have the ability to replenish. That said, prior to 3 years, under your administration, for example, replenishment analysis was nowhere close to what the actual results turned out to be. So we've got some faulty historical data. I'm not suggesting it's your fault, Mr. Mayor, but rather it was very difficult to rely upon the data. Now, what I can tell you and the public is for the past 7 years, we've had roughly $1 million of anticipated surplus. 887 or 977, orders of magnitude 1.1 million for 3 years in a row. But if you go back 7 years, we've always had roughly $1 million of anticipated surplus. Over the past 3 years, we drained surplus $1 million, despite the fact that the replenishment analysis said we could replenish. The following year, that was 22 and 23, we drained surplus 600,000, even though the replenishment analysis said we could replenish. And then last year, per the AFS at least, we don't have audit statements, but the 2024 budgets, the replenishment of the budget has said, has indicated that we not only replenished 700,000, we added to surplus 1 million. So we've had fluctuations of over $1 million 2 out of the last 3 years, rendering some of these prior analyses totally irrelevant.
Right, well, I would talk to the 24. Mr. Gartz did a pretty thorough analysis, and I'll actually provide this to you because this question's been coming up in this forum. And in fact, he had stated right up front when he did the analysis on April 10th of last year that it was a conservative analysis. So we started, the balance that he forecasted was about $1.5 million. It came in at 2.4 million, which we expected it to come in favorable. So yeah, it was not exact to the $1.4 million, but in fact it was conservative. In fact, we built not only some surplus in that account, but also in the both utility accounts. So I believe that the 2024 analysis was a good analysis. And again, I would just state that I would have expected that we would have done that for 2025. We're going up about 94% in this surplus use in 1 year. It's about 42% over the 6-year average. So to your point earlier, I looked at the 6-year average, it's about 42% more, this $1.405 million. And I realize that the rationale is speculative on the sale and proceeds of 319, but to me, it really doesn't dismiss the analysis as appropriate and fiscally responsible. So I just want to make that comment. The other comment, the question I have is that, and this is more directed to the mayor, in the past, you and another resident have pretty much railed on what you call the surplus adjusted tax rate. I would even suggest, not suggest, but state that you campaigned on that last year. I thought I had the document, but I don't. A graphic, yeah, here it is. A graphic showing what we called what you called a surplus adjusted budget. I don't particularly agree with that and that approach for a lot of reasons. But my question is, it seems as though that was something that was looked at and brought up numerous times. Do you have a handle on what the surplus adjusted budget increase is?
Well, we expect it to be neutral. We expect to be able to replenish the surplus. If we do that, the increase would be the 2.7% budgeted tax rate.
maybe I didn't state my question. When you remove the surplus, my calculations are that the spending levels at the least are 6% up. If you did add in the Lorraine Avenue, it would be up 9%. So when you remove that surplus and just look at spend, it's not 2.76%, it's minimum 6% and as high as 9%.
Well, again, if you're using the materials I campaigned with,
No, I'm using actual
no,
data.
I'm saying to calculate your version of the materials I use.
No, I'm not using your materials, I'm using the budget document. And I'm saying that last year to this year, without the surplus, spend is up 6% minimally, and when you add in 319 Lorraine, it's up 9%. So my point is that the 2.76 is somewhat of a misnomer. Do I agree with this surplus adjusted budget conversation? I don't, but I was just curious that it was such a strong point that you continued to bring up along with another resident that you would have looked at it this year.
I think we're sitting here, I'd love to answer your questions, but I think we're talking apples and oranges, because the surplus adjusted data that I provided, and to your point that I campaigned on, it was a combination of two things. What was the tax increase, 2, 3, 5%, whatever, and what was the impact on surplus in that same year? So in a year where you had a tax increase of 1.7 or 9%, and then you drained surplus of 20% of taxes, I added those two numbers together. I don't have a drained surplus, I don't have an added to surplus number yet for 2025. I expect it to be neutral. If it is neutral, our surplus adjusted number for this budget would be 2.76%. So you're calculating, you're adding in your own spend for this year. It's not a spend number. It is a surplus adjusted number, as you described it.
Right, but you would agree that if you took the surplus out, it's a minimum of 6% and as high as 9%, just on the spend
So I
side.
don't know, you've got numbers you've calculated. When you
I
say
provided
6%,
it too. Yeah, I provided it too.
regardless, are you, for example, including dollars budgeted to pay an employee over $100,000 over a couple of years that your administration was supposed to pay in Dana? Are you including that?
I'm
in your
including budget
calculation?
now, so I'm just including, if that's in the
It's in
budget,
our
then it's
budget.
including budget, yes. Then it's
You
in-
can't be including it because you wouldn't have known about it.
Well, no, I'm just taking the document that was provided to the public, that's what I'm taking. I'm looking
Yeah,
at the
but
spend on
salaries
salary
are-
and wages and other expenditures, and it's up 6% without 319 Lorraine, it's up 9% with 319.
Obviously, we throw out 319 Lorraine because that is a one-time expenditure, correct? No reason to keep referencing 9% unless you want to count $4 million of revenue, give or take.
Well, it's not gonna be $4 million of revenue when you net it down.
Not when you net it down, but revenue coming in will be $4 million
Right.
before we net it down. You don't want to count that, I presume.
No, I'm really looking at
You're
2025.
talking about spend, but if you're going to count the demolition charge expense appropriation of $380,000, that's deceptive
Right.
to the public.
And as I said, my point on that is that it is speculative. Do we expect to get that revenue? I would assume we would, but it is speculative. And the numbers are the numbers. It is 9% when you look at the numerator and denominator.
I'm not arguing that, I'm saying, do you understand the number of one-time expenditures appropriations are in that number? Do you-
I just looked at what the budget document has, so.
There are numerous one-time expenditures that we do expect to be able to recover. We do hope to and expect to retain most, if not all, of the net revenue that we gain from the church. We believe that we have sufficient buffer in our appropriations, and we have unanticipated revenue that we should have increased about $300,000 this year, because, for example, we've raised fees on, well, we will be raising them on zoning and construction. We already have this ordinance amendment, and we've already raised them for court fees. We expect the total unanticipated revenue to increase $300,000 this year.
Last question, capital forecast. Is the 3 and the 5 year capital forecast done? Has it been completed?
We have it is not included in this budget yet. It is, I talked to Mr. Fehrenbach. Mr. Fehrenbach has agreed to share with us information that your administration pulled together, did not share with us, but he said there was a 6-year forecast.
Well, it's in the budget documents for 23 and 24.
Well, we had it,
It's in the documents,
sorry.
in a detailed level.
We have not adjusted it since last year, but Mr. Berenbach indicated to me that he had updated data, which we will include subsequently.
So we don't have a capital forecast right now for 25.
We have what was rolled over from last year.
But we haven't submitted anything into the state as to, in the budget document, the 25 to 50-page budget document.
Before I answer, I want to say yes, you're right, but before I do, let me turn and ask to see about, did we update?
It was not included, it will be amended.
Okay. And I don't
And the
think that's
state, the
required.
state accepted
I don't think
it.
it's a requirement that you have to amend, yeah. it's not
Yeah, so
amendment.
we'll amend it to,
Yeah.
because there are some projects that
Yeah.
are be coming down, so it has to be amended.
Yeah, okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. I'll try to keep everyone else on a 5-minute path. Next, Mr. Cohen.
Mayor, the 380,000, Thomas J. Cohen, 612 Third Avenue. The 380,000 that you're including in this budget in the amendment, that's for the demolition of the church.
Correct.
Okay, now for 2024, when the church was supposed to be demolished, was that money, 380,000, in the 2024 budget?
It was not, and it was not.
It was not, okay, but now it is, so now we really have a true budget going forward. And the expectation is that if the sale takes place for over $4 million, and I believe we previously heard that this money net would go into the capital fund and not into the general fund, is that correct?
My understanding of the flow of the dollars is it comes through the current fund as margin, and then we move it to the capital fund to the extent we want. We've got 2 CMFOs now.
Well, the previous CFO said it was up to the council, and I just want to clarify that is the council's intent.
The council, it's my intent, the council has not officially
Okay.
voted one way or the other. Let me ask the CFO to comment.
Well, so if you take in the revenue as a sale of municipal assets, and it would go through the current fund, as you're stating, and then I believed, and I don't want to speak for anybody, but the intent was to take care of the debt associated with it, and then you would have the net amount, which we're talking round numbers, so we'll say $2 million. I don't know that there is a plan or what's gonna happen with that $2 million, whether it's, part of it's gonna go back into, fund balance, and then in the 2026 budget, whether you, increase cash capital projects, whatever you're gonna do with the money, but that, I don't think there's, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've gotten that far, where the money is gonna go beyond the
Great.
$2 million.
And then I'd just like to clarify, is the debt required, the bonding required to be paid down when the asset is sold?
I don't know. I don't
Not when the
I don't
asset's
think
sold,
so.
when you incur the debt, it gets paid down.
Okay, so,
You could even set up a reserve
Right,
to
with
pay
the
debt
money,
service.
depending on how it's borrowed.
okay, great, thank you very much.
And you were referencing existing debt, the 380,000, is going to be covered by that.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions in the room? Any questions on Zoom?
There are no hands.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Got this
that's
thing-
right, it was somebody else.
Ms. Kepler, did you have a question?
Beth Kepler, 504 Central Avenue. Good evening, esteemed council members, Mayor Kupotosi, and fellow residents. I stand before you this evening during these public comments to address a striking irony that's not gone unnoticed. It is both surprising and frankly perplexing to hear a former mayor whose tenure was marred by significant financial mismanagement now attempting to lecture our current administration on the principles of fiscal responsibility and the timely passage of a municipal budget. Allow me to elaborate. During the previous administration, under the leadership of the former mayor, our town faced serious challenges in maintaining financial integrity. Independent audits conducted during that time revealed multiple material misstatements, errors, and oversights that called into question the accuracy and reliability of our town's financial reporting. These were not minor clerical mistakes. They were substantial issues that eroded public trust and raised serious concerns about the stewardship of our taxpayer dollars. Such missteps created unnecessary hurdles for our community, forcing us to grapple with the consequences of poor oversight and questionable, at best, decision-making. Perhaps even more telling is the issue of the budget process during that administration. The former mayor presided over a period when our municipal budget was not finalized until August, and an astonishingly late date that left our town scrambling to allocate resources, plan for essential services, and meet the needs of our residents. This delay was not a one-time occurrence, but a reflection of a broader pattern of inefficiency that hindered our community's ability to function smoothly. Public Works, for example, and community programs all felt the ripple effects of this tardiness, and residents were left to bear the burden of uncertainty. Now contrast this with today's situation. Our current administration under Mayor Gubitosi has worked diligently to present a budget that reflects the needs and priorities of our community. While no process is perfect, and we acknowledge that finalizing a budget by today may not have been ideal, it is a far cry from the delays and the disarray of the past. The current administration has shown a commitment to transparency, collaboration, and fiscal discipline, qualities that were sorely lacking in previous years. To have the former mayor, whose track record speaks for itself, now step forward to criticize this administration's effort is not only ironic, but it borders on absurd. I urge this council and our community to focus on the facts. Fiscal responsibility is not achieved through empty rhetoric or selective memory, but through consistent, accountable actions. Mayor Gubitosi and this administration are working diligently and tirelessly to move our town forward, addressing past mistakes, at the same time building a stronger financial foundation for our future. Let us not be distracted by the critiques of those who own records fail to withstand scrutiny. Instead, let us support the ongoing efforts to ensure our town's resources are managed wisely and our budgets are passed with the urgency and care that our residents deserve and voted for. Thank you all for your time and attention, and I encourage this council to continue its work with integrity and to keep the best interests of our community at heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I will make a motion to close the public session.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Greenblatt?
Yes.
Mr. Nowicki?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Gubitosi?
Yes. I'll open it up to discussion among the council. Any comments or questions about the amended budget? Good. Okay, I will make a motion then that we vote to approve Resolution 2025-216, the adoption of the 2025 municipal budget.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Greenblatt?
Yes.
Mr. Nowicki?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Gubitosi?
Yes. Okay, one exciting session after another. We are now going to item
I resemble that one.
6 on our agenda. Workshops. We are going to have our planner, Ms. Jennifer Bean, share with the council an overview of our house development and fair share plan.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So several months ago, I was here to basically give you my anticipated implementation plan on how to address our affordable housing obligation for this 4th round. The DCA's number came in at 30 units of new construction, and our rehab obligation is 64. What we've done since I've been here last is we've done and completed the vacant land adjustment, as I said that we were going to, and the realistic development potential, or RDP, is 13 units. So that would leave 17 units of what they call unmet need that has to be addressed through zoning. We have proposed to satisfy that obligation through negotiations with the owner of 803 Main, who came in 2 years ago to get an approval, which had 18 units, some commercial, and no affordable units proposed. They have amended their proposal, increasing the number of units from 18 to 24, 4 of which would be affordable, still with a modest commercial component, and pretty much able to comply with our current zoning requirements along Main Street. Because this development is proximate to mass transportation, we're able to take a half a credit per unit for a total of 2 bonus credits, resulting in 6 total credits from that project. In addition, we have 2 Oxford houses located here within Bradley Beach. One has 9 bedrooms and the other has 6. We were not able to take credit for these units in the past because they don't maintain licensure with the state, as with like a typical group home for supportive needs. However, the new legislation that was adopted last year now allows for municipalities to take credit for these sober living facilities. So in addition to the 15 beds, which we get credit for, we're able to take 1 bonus credit for a total of 16 credits, resulting in a total of 22 credits for this round against the 13-unit obligation. We have 9 surplus credits that don't go away. We can use those in the next round. And just a refresh, this round is 2025 to 2035. In addition, we have committed to participating in the county's program for the rehabilitation units, which is basically what is required in order for the court to deem that we're in compliance with that rehabilitation obligation. So basically, that handles, our obligation. Now, if you move over to the unmet need. So in order to, the legislation requires that whatever we do in terms of zoning, and I know that we've been working very closely with the land use board on this issue, has to at least be able to produce 25% of the unmet need. So it's not super clear in the legislation whether it's 25% of the 4th round unmet need or it's 25% of the total from the beginning. We have taken, I've discussed this with multiple attorneys that are doing this throughout the state, we have taken the position that the legislation regulates round 4, and so it would be 25% of the 17 units, which we can do through an overlay zone over Main Street from north to south. We have a draft ordinance that was provided as part of the housing element and fair share plan that your land use board adopted. It is very rough, given this ridiculous time frame on how municipalities have to get all these plans approved and submitted to the court by June 30th in order to maintain immunity. We were working through some zoning while we were dealing with this issue in the prior round before we opted to withdraw. So we have included that as a good stepping stone, as a draft commitment to overlay Main Street for mixed use. The special adjudicator at the time was Mary Beth Flanagan, and Rachel Larkin from Fair Share Housing Center was working with myself and Ron Pichero on coming up with a draft ordinance for Main Street. They had proposed on each end, the north end and the south end, to allow for standalone multifamily residential without a commercial component. We never got far enough along in that negotiation to even get governing body weigh in at that point. It definitely was something that they've asked for. I fully anticipate Mary Beth asking for the same thing, but all we're required to do to put in here to maintain compliance with this June 30th deadline is a draft ordinance. And I know we've spoken, TJ and I actually just recently, that we'll be working with you as well as the land use board to come up with an overlay that you feel comfortable with in terms of height, density, 100% multifamily, mixed use, whatever you'd like to go in there. But right now, we needed to put something in here in order to maintain compliance because part of the legislation requires that these draft ordinances be incorporated into the document. Typically, we wouldn't even have included it until we were farther along in the process. In addition to that overlay zone on Main Street, we're required to have what they call a mandatory set-aside ordinance, which means that if any project anywhere within the borough is 5 or more units, 20% have to be affordable with a minimum of 1. Meaning, if it's, what happens, and we've seen this throughout the state, is when you just say 5 or more at 20%, you wind up with a lot of 4-unit projects with no affordable units as part of it. So the minimum of 1, but anything 5 or above, it would be 20% affordable to comply with that requirement. And then lastly, we have the development fee ordinance, which you approved last year. So that is still in effect, where a development that takes place in the borough, if it's a residential in nature, it's 1.5% of the equalized assessed value, or the change in the assessment. So if someone does an improvement on their house, it's not of the total assessment, it's on what the improvement changed. If there's no change in the assessment, there's no fee. And on non-residential development, it's 2.5%, and that actually is now incorporated into the municipal land use law, so there's really no wiggle room with respect to that. But other than that, that is our plan in a nutshell. When was the meeting, do you remember? Was it last week?
2 weeks.
2 weeks ago. So the land use board approved this 2 weeks ago. The document was submitted to the court. The legislation requires that the document be submitted to the court within 48 hours of any land use board, planning board approval, so that was submitted. So I know in your regular meeting, you have a resolution endorsing this document on the agenda. That would be forwarded, tomorrow, hopefully. But other than that, we're in good shape, and we anticipate getting comments back, probably mostly from Fair Share Housing Center. They have till the end of August to appeal or issue comments or what have you. So I anticipate that in the fall, any kind of negotiation and discussion, any kind of proposed amendments will be coming at that point in time, after which time all these zoning ordinances would be adopted. So the legislation requires them to be adopted basically by the first quarter of next year, but there's no harm in doing it. If we have a plan everyone agrees upon, we can just adopt the ordinances and we're good. We would maintain immunity, get a judgment or repose until 2035.
Great, thank you. Questions for Ms. Green?
Yes. Can you go back to the 4-unit developments? Is that the minimum of 1? Does that mean that nobody builds 4 unit? Like, I'm just trying to.
No, it means like if you come and you have a proposal for a project that has 4 units, one of them has to be affordable.
Okay, even though it's not 20%.
Correct.
So what if you have a proposal for building 3? I'm just wondering if the developers just ratchet it down.
One of them will be affordable. Minimum of 1.
Okay, 2,
One will be affordable.
and then 1.
One will be affordable.
If you're just going to build a single-family house.
No.
So that's
This is more like multifamily, so it would be more like
But
a.
if you're building 1, that's not multifamily.
No, so you're not asking for multifamily. What I'm thinking is that it'd be like a mixed use kind of thing, or some kind of like multifamily development. It would not, if you're building a single family house, that would not kick the mandatory
Does it
set aside.
depend on the zone?
No.
Or does it depend on what you're building?
What you're building.
What you're building?
Yes.
So
So if someone, let's say, comes for use variance and wants to build, a townhouse project or an apartment project in an area that you don't allow it, and the board approves it. And I have never seen that happen here, but let's say it happens, then that mandatory set aside would have to kick in.
Okay. But I'm trying to get to trying to think how the developers are trying to get around this by just, but you
Well,
say-
that's why the minimum of 1 is there, because what happened was, historically, it would just be if you have 5 or more, 20% have to be affordable, which is 1. So you have a litany of these projects which just have 4 units, so it never kicked in.
I understand. So, but what if you're just building a duplex?
If it's multifamily and it's not permitted under the zoning, one of them would have to be affordable.
Gotcha. Well, that's good. Then I have another question.
Sure.
To take you back to the beginning, you used the term, you're going through the numbers, and I was all very familiar with it until you said, so we have the 17 units of unmet need. I had my head around the 13 is our obligation, right? And we've already calculated how we're doing that. But the 17 of unmet need, I'm not like, how's that?
So
play?
the DCA gave us a number of 30.
Right.
We adjusted the 30 to 13.
And that's our obligation.
So 30 minus 13 equals 17. So the 17 units that are left don't just evaporate, they go into what we call unmet need, which is why we have to do the zoning.
Okay, but the 13 is what our actual obligation is, like we have
Yes.
to provide those units.
Credits, yes.
Okay, so the 17, they expect that to be addressed in the, or like anytime in the next 10
You
years?
just have to provide the zoning. If not
Okay.
one unit is ever built, it doesn't matter. You've complied with the unmet need by providing the overlay zoning. The overlay of Main Street and the mandatory set aside. Those are the mechanisms that the court will accept to address that unmet need.
And we're actually providing the obligation of 13 through what you said, that they on Main, and combination of the Oxford hazard that
Correct.
previously didn't count, okay.
Correct.
And I'm just saying all this because, there's been some people that are very adamant advocates for affordable housing, as they should be, and they've come here and they've said a lot of things, and I feel like the town is doing everything that we are supposed to do, and we're doing it, and we're getting there, and they've stopped coming because they think that we're not doing it. So, appreciate your efforts and explaining this in plain English, and thank you very
No
much,
problem.
Jen.
Other questions?
Just adding to that, I think, we've been the most, especially thank you to you, Mayor Gubitosi, we've been the most proactive, mayor and council ever. These development fees were created, but they were never enforced, so this is the first year that we're doing that. We're complying with state regulations, we're improving the housing stock, we're building up the trust. So I think these are all great things. Thank you for your time, thank you for the land use board as well, because I think we're really, and we're exceeding what we have to do. So I think this is really good news.
So I have a question. So on the 64 rehab units, that program that we have to put in place, how is that going to come about? What's the timeline of us putting that in place? We're collecting the fees on development fees.
Correct.
And so there's other obligations that we will have to do. Set the account, the trust account, accumulate that money, and then advertise. Also hire a person to manage that, administrate that.
Yes.
And that's tied to the county program. Could you just elaborate on that a
So-
little bit on the time frame that we would have to do this?
So the 64 units is over the duration of this round, which is 2025 to 2035. So you have 10 years to do it. However, you don't have to physically rehab 64 units. You just have to provide the opportunity and earmark the money in your spending plan that would accommodate 64 units over the 10-year, it's really actually 11-year period of time. What that means, the borough will have to hire what they call an administrative agent. That administrative agent will manage not just the rehab and the coordination with the county, but also the 4 units that are being constructed at 803 Main, making sure that it's affirmatively marketed, meaning it has to be marketed to the whole region, Monmouth, Ocean, Mercer County. Make sure that individuals are income qualified, they go through all of their income information, make sure they're qualified, and make sure that the deed restrictions are in place because these affordable units have to be deed restricted. They also will coordinate the rehab program. And the way the rehab program works, it's not really a timeline. Once this gets adopted, and honestly, the spending plan and the revenues coming in are a projection because clearly we can't predict the future. So we're projecting how much revenue the borough will get over the course of this round. We project how much it will cost. There are things that are required. 30% of your balance has to be earmarked for affordability assistance, meaning like if someone came in and said, their HOA fees were too high and they can't maintain, they're income qualified and they can't maintain this, there could be programs put in place to give them money under this affordability assistance, assuming, they're gonna be willing to deed restrict their house and those types of things. So that's a projection, obviously, but all you have to do to maintain compliance with this rehab program is provide the fact that you are participating in the program, you have an administrative agent, and you provide the earmarked revenue or money in the spending plan for rehabilitation over the course of this round. The way the rehab program works is, obviously you have to be income qualified, and it's for things like bringing your house up to code, maybe replacing a roof, maybe replacing some windows, those types of things. And then if you leave your house before 10 years is up, you have to repay the money back to the trust fund. If you stay in that unit beyond the 10 years, then it's forgiven, almost as if it's a grant, not a loan. I will say it's going to be challenging in a community like this because you know, the property values are pretty significant. And I find that in all of my coastal communities, really, you know, but the opportunity is there. We have to provide for, you know, the obligation. And, you know, in the event that we're looking at a budget situation where the trust fund doesn't have the money to pay out all this stuff, there's an opportunity at that time to do what they call a windshield survey, where you go through town and you identify, are there really 64 units here in Bradley Beach that are, you know, out of code in terms of things? I don't know. I haven't done the windshield survey, but that option exists in the regulations if in fact it becomes an issue moving forward. But right now, we have it earmarked for approximately 6 per year, which would get us to 60. So like the last couple of years, you know, it's like 7 for the last couple of years just to hit the 64 number.
So theoretically, if in fact the plan is approved, and then we have to hire our administrative agent, and we have to advertise proactively, and we have people coming to us applying for assistance, but there's not any money yet, or enough money accumulated, so there would be an obligation then for us to somehow be able to fund that.
You would
based on
have
those
to,
requests.
you would have to bond for it, but you can bond against the trust fund.
And I did hear somebody in the past make a suggestion in the community that perhaps there could be a donation from, say, from the proceeds of 319 Lorraine, that could also help shore this up. And so we could also do innovative things like that to be able to ensure that we are building that trust.
Absolutely, you just have to take whatever, I mean, that would be up to you, and then you, whatever amount you decided, if you decide that, to be pushed into the trust fund. That fund has to be a separate, I know she knows this because she knows what she's doing over there, but has to be a separate fund, separate and apart from all your other funds and things like that, you know, and then what the court will require is, you know, the bank, the interest rate, all that good stuff, which she's provided for us.
Thank you.
John, go ahead.
I have one more. On the windshield survey thing, I agree, yeah, we're probably not gonna find 64 units, but in the front houses, people's back houses, I think potentially could be affordable housing. But how would that work? Never mind, you can't see into the windshield, but we figure out, say we found them. But if the, you know, the value of the property or the income of the owner, I mean, how, you know,
It's gonna be tough here. That's, you know, and I find that, you know, I do this basically from, you know, Manasquan all the way up through Deal. I have to tell you, I have seen single-digit rehabs cumulatively here.
And then when you say something's not up to code, could it just be peeling paint?
Could be.
I could have been on that list.
me too.
That's what I'm thinking. I did have my house painted this, so I mean, I'm on the list. But it could be a bad group, it could be
Yes.
anything that's not up to code.
Right.
So it could be something that simple.
Yes.
But on this point, if it's a high-income individual,
They would not qualify.
they would
Right.
not qualify. So,
But
be
they,
on that list
I,
for
yeah,
very short period.
right, but still.
They would keep you off.
But just because there's 64 houses, doesn't, they don't know how much these people are earning.
No, and that's why you have the administrative agent that would go through the process of income qualifying.
Right.
You know, and the income levels vary depending upon the size of your household, right? So a single person household, the income levels are significantly less than if you're in a household of 5 or 6 people. It's not one income, it's dependent on the size of your household.
So I think it's important to, so number one, thank you for all the work you've done for us. And I know you've had a very intense 6-month period, culminating with June 30th. So
Yes.
as you get these-
I'm anxiously awaiting June 30th.
I think it's important to say for the public's benefit that others have made reference to this, but this council is doing everything in our power to not only comply, but to aggressively push forward making funding available for affordable housing. I had someone suggested in an email to me recently that the borough, our residents, are somehow discriminating against lower income people, that we collectively, and not just me, not just the council, the borough is anti-low income individuals. I have seen no evidence of that, clearly none on this governing body. You mentioned, Ms. Bean, that, you know, and I forgive you for being off a couple of years, but you said last year we introduced the ordinance for
The development fees.
It was actually introduced and adopted in 2017.
Yes, but that was not correct. did recently adopt a new ordinance and established a fund, I think, last year, the year before? So those ordinances that were adopted in 2017 were never formally approved by the court or by DCA, whoever was managing it at the time, because there was no adopted housing element fair share plan. So that was redone recently.
And the point being, there have been efforts underway for years, right through to my first 2 weeks in office this year, where we flipped the switch and said, let's start collecting these fees. There has been already a very preliminary discussion, just one-off discussions, about could we take a chunk of money, put it in this trust, because our trust is bare, because we have not been collecting for, could have been 7 years. So, we're talking to different developers in town. You mentioned one of them, the Autotech property, and we've worked out a compromise position there. We're talking to other developers as well to try to secure units as well as potential funding to support this. So I appreciate your efforts to support us, but as our message to the community, we're doing everything in our power. Even though we are deemed to have satisfied our current obligation, we're doing everything in our power to continue to provide affordable housing.
And all that is gonna do is set you guys up for success in round 5, because the more units you accumulate over the 13, they don't go away. You still are able to take credit for them in subsequent years. I was actually in Plainsboro Township on Monday night, and their entire plan was built of surplus units that they had done in the prior round. So there was no new developments, it makes the process that much easier and way more difficult for anybody to challenge when you have surplus units on projects that have been approved and what have you, for sure.
So no other questions for this meeting? So, okay, some questions. So typically, typically we would hold public questions for anything related to the workshop until we get to item number 9 on our agenda. However, in the interest of letting Ms. Bean go home, I'm going to open up questions for the public now so we can take advantage of Ms. Bean while she's here. Mr. Coyne, you got any other?
Yes, Thomas J. Cohen, 612 Third Avenue. Being that everyone's in the room, Mr. Cannon, Mr. Doherty, Ms. Bean, at our last meeting when we did adopt this plan on the land use board, we did schedule a workshop for, I believe it's our July 17th meeting of the land use board, because all the land use board members were concerned about the draft ordinance, but they have some really, really good concepts in terms of the BOR and the OP zones, so that I think we can really work through it quickly. My question really to Mr. Cannon and Ms. Bean is, do we expedite it now and do it in 2025, or do we wait and do it in January of 2026? I mean, if we
I
have it
think you have to
already.
see how the process plays out as we file it. If you have objections, then it might take longer. I don't think we can find that timeline until we see what happens for at least the first comment period.
I mean, there's nothing to prevent us from doing it in 2025, but I agree with Mr. Cannon that, there's so many unknowns. This process is brand new, and so we're not really sure, like right now, the focus is June 30th, so we're not really sure what we're gonna get over the summer. We may get nothing, right? We may get people coming out of the woodwork, we just don't know. I would not recommend adopting the ordinance until we have the balance of the plan pretty much set.
We will be expeditious in terms of.
100%. I mean, there's nothing to stop us from doing the work now
Right.
to set us up so when the time is right, we're ready to go. There's nothing to prevent that from happening. It just, I wouldn't recommend adopting any of these ordinances until we get farther
So
through the process.
we'll just turn it over to you and leave it, once we complete it, the land use board, we'll just turn it over to you and then.
I'm sure Fair Share will have a comment on
Yes,
it as well.
and being head of Wiener Law Group is the affordable housing attorney who's handling specific compliance filings. And yeah, they'll turn and they'll tell us.
And then the ordinance changes would be done here, though, right? We would have to
Ultimately,
do that.
yeah.
Yes.
Great, okay, thank you very much.
And then probably, and then come back to you, and then come back to
Right.
you. So, you'll be in the loop.
You good? Other questions? Yes, sir? Please. Actually, if you would state name and address.
Sure. I'm Bob McAllister from 412 Fifth Avenue, and I had a question with respect to the credits for the Oxford houses. What is our level of confidence that those are not going to be subject to challenge?
So historically, because they don't have licensure through like the state of health and human services or developmentally disabled, the process would not accept those bedrooms as credits because they're just not allowed for it. This legislation, which just got adopted last year, has changed that. So it specifically says that they're eligible for credit.
And how do we assure that they are affordable?
They're affordable
units?
just by the nature of the fact that they're supportive needs housing.
Is that right?
Yes, same as a group home.
Okay, because I had a question about the plan, because the plan says that Bradley Beach maintains them. and I-
Maintains meaning has them here.
I don't think that's the case,
Which,
right?
that word is used to say Bradley Beach has them physically here. but
Right,
that-
right.
so
They're
not that-
privately
yes, 100%.
owned and operated,
They're-
yeah.
Yes, yes.
But we're certain that
Yes.
there will be income requirements so that they will be affordable.
No, they're affordable just by the simple fact that it's supported needs housing. That is one of the groups of creditable use types. So if there was a group home of developmentally disabled adults, which is regulated as a single-family home, so would not need any board approval or what have you, half the time council would realize that they're there because they really just pull a building permit. They don't income qualify the individuals. It's a registered supported needs housing. You get credit per bedroom.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The other part that I was concerned about was the present need, and we talked about this a bit at the Land Use Board as well. 64 units is
A
a
lot.
big number.
Yes, I agree.
Belmar's number is 0,
I understand
and
that.
Belmar's bigger than we are.
Oh, the DCA creates the numbers, which is why I said if we wind up in an issue, we can perform that windshield survey and then,
Okay,
like,
my only reason for raising it, and the reason I raised it at land use, was it's something that we really need to think a lot about and figure out how do we satisfy ourselves that we don't have a big problem. Because if you look at the plan, we could be talking about overcrowding, we could be talking about inadequate plumbing, we could be talking about inadequate kitchen facilities. It's a bad look for Bradley Beach to have a big number like that. So if the number's wrong, that's great. But how do we figure out whether it's real, and if it is real, what do we do about it?
so the building department would have to go through the borough and do a windshield survey of every structure and then give us a detailed information about each and every unit here. And they would come up and say, 64 is not real, we found 15. But they would have to go through that exercise.
Jen, on this point, and we, as you mentioned, Mr. Metowski, we talked about this, and I asked questions as well about this at our last land use board meeting. That windshield survey, you were alluding to some of this process earlier, that you don't know who's living there. Could be Jane DeNoble that just doesn't paint her house frequently enough. But to the extent it qualifies for low income.
Well, the thing is that we're talking two different things, right? So we're talking about the number, right, the 64 number. That windshield survey doesn't matter who's living there. It's, do you have 64 units within the borough that are in need of rehabilitation? I agree with you. I think it's significantly lower than that. Then, once we get to a realistic number based upon this windshield survey that the building department would have to do, then if somebody wants to propose to enter the rehab program, then they would have to be income qualified. It's two separate. The number is first, and then who gets to use the rehab program is second.
But then you also, I believe, mentioned, but let me confirm, you also mentioned it's less about, it's more about creating the opportunities
Yes.
for people to take advantage of the rehab dollars, that we need to market, campaign, advertise.
Well, you have to earmark the money too. That's one of the reasons why when you have a big number, you're earmarking like $25,000 per unit, and you have to provide for that out of like your trust fund dollars. So that's money that has to be earmarked for the rehab that probably is inflated erroneously that you can't touch for other things. So it may be worth the while. That would definitely be up to you. It's something that we can do, but as of right now, it's really just a matter of hiring the administrative agent and entering into the program.
And you said at the moment where we have very, very little trust fund dollars, we might have to be bonding for a lot of that.
Yes.
And did I understand before that for the development fees, we're collecting them under a new ordinance?
I think we adopted it last year because when the special adjudicator and Fair Share Housing Center reviewed the ordinance that was on the books from 2017, they found some, changes to the language that needed to be made, changes to the law that needed to be made. So those things were made, and the fund is open, right? We have a trust fund, right?
Yes.
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 Okay,
And we are collecting.
very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other questions or comments in the room? On Zoom, questions or comments? Okay, Ms. Bean, thank you very much. We'll close our workshop. I'd like to move to item 7 on the agenda, presentations and bids. We have another special guest with us tonight, Mr. Fred Eveno. Mr. Eveno, I put a couple quick notes together for you. Number one, I wish former Mayor Fox might have been able to stay with us a little longer, because I did ask Mr. Eveno to, the council hired Mr. Eveno a number of months ago to give us a look back, focus and understanding of, where we, the municipality, have struggled financially, give us a sense for the nature of the challenges. And, the real focus here that we charged Mr. Eveno with was to say, tell us more or less what went wrong. How can we learn from the past so we can fix things going forward in the future? And I think I even presented it at the time we were hiring Mr. Eveno. We said your sole focus was to look back. What we do plan to do is learn from the past. Not coincidentally, we have officially assembled a financial task force, and under the guidance of our CFO, Jeanette Larison. Jeanette is clearly leading the charge here to help us fix flaws in our current structure. Our collective hope is that we'll be able to utilize some of the expertise we have in our residents to help us move forward. So, a couple quick things. Mr. Eveno delivered a 10-page report, counting the last page, which is an attachment. But a 10-page report, in my opinion, very thorough, very informative, a lot of insights, not only in terms of what went wrong, but what we need to do to fix things. We have asked him to present tonight. I did ask him specifically to present in an overview fashion. He's not going to read the report. We're not going to share the report with you live tonight. It is posted on the borough website. We posted it 6 o'clock-ish, 5:30.
5:30.
So a little before the meeting. It is out there. If you've seen it already, great. If you haven't yet seen it, you can look at it later. If you do have questions after Mr. Eveno's presentation, Ms. Larson and I will try to handle those at a subsequent meeting. But tonight is really just to give everyone an overview of the work that Mr. Eveno has done. So, Fred, can I ask you to present?
Absolutely, thank you. And thank you for bringing me aboard to help out, and thank you for giving him my report.
Fred, are you able to speak at the microphone?
I can,
Might-
yes.
Might help with your voice.
Like the mayor said, I will be brief. I'm not going to read you a 10-page report, unless anybody has sleeping problems. It's a very interesting situation that Granite Beach is in. I've been in government for over 40 years. CFOs, for the most part, are retired. And here I am. I have, in reviewing all of the books and the records, annual financial statements, annual debt statements, audit reports, the one common denominator which is very, very, very concerning. And I had two major concerns in reviewing the books and records of the borough. The first one is, I don't know how many people are accountants, I'm just trying to keep it simple, but you have one set of books, which is your general ledgers and subsidiary ledgers, okay, which is on the computer, okay? That's where you record your cash, you record your expenditures, and so on and so forth. At the end of the year, you do an annual financial statement, okay, which is supposed to report what's on your books. And after that, you do an audit report. Now, all three should coincide. There could be some little things here and there that are wrong, you make a little adjustment here, a little adjustment there. When I looked at everything, it was like I was looking at 3 sets of books. It was on the ledgers, it was on the financials, and it was on the audit report. Totally, millions of dollars off. It wasn't even close. Okay, that was concerning, to say the very least. Another problem I had seen on the books themselves, in the accounting world, you have debits and you have credits. Okay, debits must equal credits. Debits do not equal credits here. Okay, that's been going on for several years. The other major concern that I had is something that is called an interfund. What an interfund is, it's money that is borrowed from one fund to another fund. And it's totally legitimate, totally legal, but you have to pay that money back before the end of the year. Meaning, let's say if the capital fund needed money, okay, I want to borrow money from the current fund. Okay, it borrows it, but by the year end, it gives it back. I've heard some discussion with surplus, okay? When you don't pay those interfunds back, number one, it's bad accounting. Number two, you restrict your surplus. Okay, will be fund balance. Interchangeable words mean the same thing. So much of your surplus has been restricted. You've got millions of dollars, okay, in surplus. Why they weren't liquidated? Beyond me, because in many cases, you had the cash to do it. It just wasn't done. No one did that. The scope of my audit actually went back to 2019. Okay, so it's not like we're taking shots at administrations or who shot John. I'm not even looking at CFOs. I'm looking at administrations. I'm just looking at the books and records and find out why the borough is in financial condition that the finances are in today. And in order to do that, I went back. I went all the way back to 2019. I looked at 18 a little bit, wasn't too bad, but 19 seemed to start with downfall. Some of the highlights of the surplus, which has not been regenerated. Now, what is surplus in the budget? Okay, you have all of your revenues that you anticipate, and you have all of your expenditures. Okay, ideally, they're equal. Okay, but when they're not, it's permissible and very common to use surplus to plug that gap so that you balance your budget. Okay, municipalities have a zero balance budget where revenues have to equal expenditures. Surplus is considered a revenue. And ideally, when you're using surplus, if you're anticipating X amount of dollars of surplus, you want to be able to regenerate that surplus to equal that, if not better that, okay, by increasing your collection of taxes, by increasing your local revenues. So the news is in all bad, your collection of taxes go over 99%, so which is very good. So taxes are coming in. It's almost surprising that your finances are working. I think a large part of that is due to good collection of taxes because of all the errors that are on the books, all over the place. The 2022 audit had not been completed until 2024. The 2023 audit was just came in a couple months ago. Now, I'm not blaming the auditor at all. I think in reviewing the audits, he did a great job. However, being handed the books the way the shape of the books were in is why it took that long. Again, no negativism against the auditor. A phenomenal job. It's just that when you handed this, it's almost like you had to put the books back together so we could get in almost like auditing his own work because he had nothing really else to work for. There was a tremendous amount of lack of controls and internal controls. I'm real big on internal controls. If you have internal controls, you would have a lot of these other issues. So there's a severe limitation of internal controls which have to be addressed. On the audit itself, puts everything all together, and where he sees problems, okay, he identifies those problems as a finding, and then also adds to a recommendation. 11 findings is quite a bit. Ideally, 1, 0. Is it common to have 1 or 2, something like that? Yes, that's common, okay? Hopefully nothing of any large magnitude, but it's common. Here you had 11. Of those 11, 9 of those were prior year findings. It means that in the prior year audit, those were not addressed. That was the 23, or in the 22 audit, there was 16 comments and recommendations, of which 8 were prior year comments and recommendations that were not addressed. And then I even went back to 21, there were 8 findings in that audit report, okay? Much of which were part of the 9 and the 22, and in the 23 audit as well. So it doesn't look like much attention was given to the audit. When I looked at the audit reports and I looked at the financials, when I looked at the records, when an audit comes in and it makes adjustments to balances, you're supposed to, have your books equal to what the audit is. So you're starting out with, ending balances, so your beginning balance in the next year, the same number. I don't see any of those adjustments. I don't see any audit adjustments. The records are just so bad. Now, why is this all so important? One, there's no financial integrity, which is needed. Okay, that helps in your bond market. It helps get your ratings. Another reason why is we talked about the budget earlier. How do you put a budget together if you don't even know how good the numbers are? Okay, so you don't want to put a budget that you could wind up in a deficit, and then have to raise that deficit the following year. It's extremely. I always like to look at the finance department being like the nervous system of the body. Okay? It's not any better or any worse than any other department. When your nervous system in your body doesn't work, your other parts of the body have all kinds of problems. When the finances don't work, public safety, public works, recreation, your other departments also suffer. Okay? Well, we can't buy police cars, we can't get public works equipment, we can't do this, we can't do that. Okay, so the finances really have to be in place, and they have to be in good order. Like I said, I can go on and on and on and on. Okay, so I think I have to be honest with you, much of that is touching the surface. Okay? And it's not just the current fund, it's the capital fund, it's the sewer fund, it's the recreation fund, it's all over the place. You have something that are called dedication by riders, which makes up your trust fund. These were approved by the Division of Local Government Services that say, yes, you can have this, or no, you can't do that trust fund. We have 33 of them, but not all have been approved by the Division of Local Government Services. So they have to still be approved, even though they've been going on for 50 years. So more cleanup over there. I won't be too long, but in a nutshell, it's bad. However, anything else, it can all be fixed. Okay. Jeanette and I have spoken a little bit earlier on some remedies that we can actually accelerate by basically using the audit report. Forget about all the messes out of there. Basically start fresh. Trust that what the audit report has in it, anything clean out. Add the internal controls. Get rid of intercoms. Get rid of all the expenditures that we see in there. Don't allow over expenditures. Can an over expenditure happen in 1 year to another year? Absolutely. You may under budget for something. There's something called transfers. This is in the last 2 months of the year. Move some funds around so you don't have over expenditures. You never over expend the trust or capital. Okay. But those, again, it goes back to internal controls. So internal controls are in place, you don't have these problems. If more attention is paid in finances, you don't have these problems. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. I guess I don't want to bore you, and thank you for your report. This is sort of a reflection of mine. A lot less paper.
Coming from you, that's an honor.
Does anybody has any questions? I'm sorry about my
So, I was
back.
gonna say, so yes, Mr. Even, thank you again for the work you've done and coordination with us. While I'm not gonna open it up to the public, I am gonna open it up to the council just to ask, do we have questions for Mr. Even?
I don't have a question, I have sort of a comment that, something I'm hoping you'll say. I read your report, thank you, great summary just now. One of the things you say in the report is that you say, it doesn't look like there was fraud or embezzlement or anything like that. It was just all this sloppiness, lack of controls or whatever. So I feel like that's a really important thing to say to the public, because there's all sorts of, I mean, it can lead to those things, right? But
Oh, it got
you found
absolutely to it.
Okay.
Even at one point in time, bank reconciliations weren't done for over a year. Okay, there could have been embezzling there, there could have been, somebody, breaking into your bank account, some scam or something like that going on. Fortunately, in that year that had happened, the audit report showed nothing. So you were extremely fortunate, you were extremely vulnerable, okay, but you were extremely fortunate, even to today, that nothing catastrophic has actually happened.
And on that note, I agree with you that I'm not aware of anything that would suggest anything fraudulent.
No.
However, in that year, 2022, you mentioned nothing happened, but we couldn't find $75,000 through lost entries. It wasn't.
Which is, yes,
It wasn't.
that 22 year was a tough year. 74 there was, over $100,000 of overdrafts. There was a reserve for, what the reserve was called, something wild. I've never seen that before.
Miscellaneous revenue.
Miscellaneous, yeah, it was wild. You just don't have that, okay? It was here, okay? And that was overdrafts. They didn't know what to do with the overdrafts. They charged us account. You had, at one point in time, 53 bank accounts. That's a tremendous. Well, the CFO of the city of Patterson, we didn't have 53 bank accounts, okay? And that was over $100 million budget. Then on the other years, it was about 30 some odd. Those bank accounts would have to be looked at. I don't think you need that many bank accounts, especially in a small municipality like this. And you don't have a whole bunch of different variants where you would need different trust funds and escrow funds and stuff like that. Again, internal controls, simplifying things. It was just incredible. And the deviations, you could be missing almost $1 million of surplus from one annual financial statement to the audit report. Cash, huge disparities, huge. So, there's a lot.
Yeah, thank you for the report. I think it was, well done. A lot of the items that you were identifying were accounting, bookkeeping, discrepancies, errors, bad habits, bad practice. Similar to the audit findings, were very similar to what you were finding as well. So that was,
Yes.
and just reinforcement of that. Have you come up with a list of specific recommendations, early action items, critical ones, that you would put in a priority order for us that said, these are the absolute things we need to do ASAP? And have you gone through an action plan that you
Not a
developed?
full-blown action plan. There are hints of that in here in various different areas. I'd be happy to get together with Jeanette, I've known Jeanette for a number of years also. But yeah, and like I had said, we were speaking earlier, at this point in time, to undo everything, to bring it back to where the audit report should be internally on your books, it just doesn't make any sense. I would rely on the audit report that you had just received, even though it's for 2023, to reset those 24 balances, even though you've already done your, completed your annual financial statement and your budget, I would still go back, okay, to make sure that when the orders come in for 2024, you can find some of those issues that may exist, which will help you in your 2025 year to get at least better beginning balances, because 24 is the best. 24 books your debits and credits that you can.
is the investment that we've made in you doing this. We want to capitalize that going forward. So if you do get together with Jeanette, please do, and bring that back to, the administration to make sure that we are implementing some of the best critical practices that we need to address. Absolutely.
Yeah, and great comments, Paul, and just to state this clearly to the public, Jeanette is our CFO. Jeanette will lead the charge. Some of this you already were aware of, some of this may be helping, insights you've already gained. And I
Take it
have.
from all angles.
Well, you are only one person, and this might need an army. However, we are very committed to straighten this out as soon as possible.
I've got confidence in Jeanette. Like I said, we've known a long time.
So do we have a time frame of when this can be organized, and can the financial task force help out with this? We have a committee?
I'm not sure. I know I've spoken to the mayor. He mentioned the financial task force. I'm not sure what their actual role is. But I would run everything through, the CFO.
Okay, that sounds good. And I do have to comment that I did like that, in the last budget that we didn't have the council last year didn't have the financial data to make an educated decision.
That's right.
And I'm really glad you acknowledged that. I mean, I didn't know what to do. I thought maybe we had to change our form of government just to break this cycle. We didn't know what was going on. And I'm just so glad that you found Fred, and it sounds like we can actually resolve this and finally
Absolutely.
break this cycle. And you said, you went back to 2019. I'm wondering how long this really went on, even before that.
Like I said, 2018 didn't look too bad, but then the downfall really started in 19, and it really accelerated thereafter.
Right. So I'm glad we can finally get to
The other
resolve
thing
this.
I learned, not on the books per se, but in speaking to the mayor, I was that the governing body was actually fined.
Yes, we were fined, yes.
I don't know how you could put
Almost
a budget
$1,000
together.
each.
Which is terrible.
Yes, it was really frustrating, and we just wanted to do the right thing,
Absolutely.
and we couldn't make an educated determination. We didn't have information.
I don't think they did either.
This is wonderful, this is very
Based on my
refreshing.
review.
It's a very good day for Gravity Beach, and I thank you for your time.
You're more than welcome, thank you.
Any other comments? The one thing, again, I've thanked you a couple times, and we all appreciate just getting some better insight into our challenges. But I did want to read for the public, and for the record, for the minutes, one specific comment you made. It was on page 8. You said, across all the years examined, there is a consistency of bad record keeping and books grossly disagreeing with the audited and unaudited financial statements. As a result of this, it is very difficult for a governing body to make an informed decision on financial matters, including the introduction and adoption of the annual budget.
Right.
And that not only captures in a nutshell the challenge we faced last year, captured in a nutshell the challenge we face this year in preparing this year's budget.
Yes.
And when the prior mayor was asking what kind of prep work have we done, and I said, it's difficult because the data we have is somewhat questionable. I'm not sure he fully appreciated, I kind of wish I had your report done before I invited him to speak, but I'm not sure he appreciates the lack of quality in the data that we began this year's budget preparation with. So this is illuminating, and I do appreciate your work.
Thank you.
All right, I think you can go home, sir.
Very much.
No more questions. Thank you.
Well done.
Okay, we will move from workshop to, from presentations to approval of the minutes. I'll make a motion that we approve June 5th, 2025 council business meeting minutes.
Second.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Greenblatt?
Yes.
Mr. Nowicki?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Gubatosi?
Yes. Make a motion to approve June 5, 2025 executive session minutes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Greenblatt?
Yes.
Mr. Nowicki?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Gubatosi?
Yes. Now we will open it up for public comments or questions pertaining to any items on this agenda. Questions or comments on this agenda? Anyone on Zoom? Okay, seeing no questions or comments? Sorry, is there one? Oh, sorry about that.
No, that's okay, you can't see the owls. Beth Kepler, 504 Central Avenue. Yeah, goes back to 2023. And my petition letter that I read here, and 300 residents in this borough signed asking for the Attorney General to assign a special prosecutor to investigate the corruption that was clearly happening in the town. And in retrospect, it completely makes sense to me now why, being that I was the first person to come forward and say it boldly and loudly what was going on, why my home was entered and threats were left. And I applaud you all for doing what needed to be done. It wasn't easy to do it. I think I'm really offended, especially hearing what I heard here tonight, that including Councilwoman Mahoney that isn't here, that you had to pay money out of your own pocket to defend us and to stand in the gap between us and, I mean, you're being generous by not calling it fraud or embezzlement, but that's what it looks like to me. That would have been nice for a prosecutor or somebody criminally to investigate, and based on what the gentleman said this evening, his financial review, would that normally find fraud, or would that specifically be for an investigator to find, and would his report be something to send on to be investigated at this point, in your opinion?
It would not normally find fraud. It would be very unique for, it would have to stumble onto it because he was not looking for fraud. It was a very limited scope. I hate to even call it an audit, but it was a limited scope review where he largely compared financial statements. To find fraud, you've got to investigate our vendors, legitimate vendors, people created false bank accounts. He did not go to that level. He simply could not track trial balances at the ending of the year to equal trial balance amounts at the beginning of the next year. I mean, everything he observed was flaws in our accounting processes.
So for me, from my background in the medical field, that would mean that he saw symptoms and without further diagnostics, he couldn't clinically diagnose. So being that we have massive, overwhelming symptoms, based on what this report and my loose understanding of it, just going by what his explanation revealed, and coupled with this, the 54 bank accounts that were, discovered and were withheld, and the budget process, the material misstatements, the fact that our CFO had his license removed, I could go on and on. The list, the list. I keep going over and over and over it. But when you put it and you look at it, I know that the Mr. Barrett never wanted to look in the rearview mirror, but the only way we don't repeat this in the future is by looking in the rearview mirror and learning from our mistakes so that we never have to live through this nightmare again. And so in your esteemed opinion at this point, I know it's preliminary and I'm putting you on the spot, but based on what this gentleman said tonight, are you going to be forwarding this to an authority, to someone at an authoritative level, like within the state, like applicable? Because back then, in July of 2023, we were asking for a special prosecutor. I feel like 2 years now into this, we have an overwhelming, insurmountable amount of probable cause here worthy of a criminal investigation. Will this body, this legislative body, on behalf of the residents, present this to the Attorney General's office and formally ask for an investigation in depth into what's going on with millions of dollars of our tax money?
I would say it would be premature for us to do that because, again, there's no, at this point, evidence of fraud. There's evidence of tremendous malpractice, if you will. Primary intention of having this look back and having this report delivered is to educate us, to figure out what's broken. And we received a good amount of that from Mr. Rivelar's report. We now have to turn it over to our CFO to work with me, in particular, and the council, governing body, to fix things. And in the process of fixing, we're going to learn a lot more about why we went off the rails.
So potentially it could come to that, but
Potentially.
it's too soon at this point.
Yes.
Okay,
Can I
Thank
just say
you.
something for clarification, and just Kevin, just so you know, he did not say that there were 3 sets of books. He said it was as if there were 3 sets of books, because the books which are supposed to match the AFS didn't, which is supposed to match the audit didn't. And so he said it was as if there were. There were not 3 sets of books, just to be clear.
Oh, I heard what
Because
he
that-
said.
Okay.
That's
So
like,
he-
to
he
me,
came to the microphone, he said 3 sets of books.
Right.
He said there's not 3 sets of books.
I heard very clearly what he
Okay.
said, and that screams RICO and mob to me. That's how the mob operates.
I don't think we're talking
That's
about.
how embezzlement operates. I'm not saying it is a mob,
Correct.
but the financial aspect of the mob, they keep different sets of books, and the numbers never jump. And that's essentially what we have going on here.
Based on my interactions with Mr. Ivano and then listening to him tonight, I think we all jumped to a visual of truly having 3 separate files of books or whatever. And I think he was being a little bit creative in what he's saying is, in my opinion, we have one set of books, maybe John, to your point, but they are so mismanaged that general ledger accounts don't equal sub-accounts. Year-end balances don't equal following year beginning balances. We effectively don't have one set of books. So,
With 54 bank accounts and things not reconciled, that's troubling. But I've taken enough of your time. Thank you for answering my question.
other questions or comments about anything on the agenda? Anything? No? Okay, we will close the public comments, item 9, and move to item 10 on the agenda, ordinances. There are no introductions for this evening. We had scheduled an adoption of the traffic ordinance, chapter 9, changes we plan to make to the parking lot just north of this building. I'm gonna make a motion in a second, but the reason I'm making this motion is because we, the borough, are working on possible alternatives. We're not saying this ordinance might not ultimately be voted upon, but at least for tonight, we would like to buy a little more time to see if we can come up with an even better solution than what is proposed here. So that said, I'll make a motion that we table the adoption of ordinance 2025-17.
Second.
Mrs. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Greenblatt?
Yes.
Mr. Nowicki?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Gubatosi?
Yes. Okay, for item 11, we have communications, and I'll turn to Councilman Zawicki. Paul, would you like to give us a brief update on where we stand here? Fifth Avenue sewer infrastructure.
Sure. As far as the Fifth Avenue sewer infrastructure replacement project. As people may recall, last year we were going to advance a project to line the sewer from Main Street down to Madison, and then resurface that Fifth Avenue. Back in January, we opted to not advance that project. As we reviewed that and we saw that the lining option we felt was not the appropriate solution, that we should do sewer replacement for various reasons. One, because the condition of the sewer, although you could extend its useful life, all your lateral connections, house connections coming in would be difficult to ever replace if you were to line that sewer. So it would just create a complexity to the homeowner. So we ultimately opted not to award that contract as a sewer lining, and then we re-advertised here and did a sewer replacement project that was actually bid. We took bids on that yesterday, and those bids came in the engineer's estimate, and the contract for the resurfacing, which was awarded to Fernandez Construction back in earlier this year. That was just the resurfacing, the lining was taken out. And so the contract that was awarded yesterday was just for the sewer replacement. We were trying to get this project and the sewers done here between July and September because of the school and the school session being there. And so we're pushing to get that contract awarded and the construction to happen and completed for the sewer replacement while school is out. And then come back and resurface the lot here in, the Fifth Avenue now. That is being coordinated with the contractor, and we also have to get a bond ordinance put into place so that we can actually bond for that sewer replacement. So there's a timing thing here that is occurring as we speak, that we won't be able to get that construction to begin on that sewer until probably late July, early August. And so that's the time frame right now when that construction would happen. Unfortunately, certain things with getting everything in place to get that contract awarded sooner and bid on sooner than yesterday didn't happen, in order to have had construction begin here, beginning of July. So we are moving rapidly. It is going to happen. We're going to have more information to the community, the residents on Fifth Avenue, exactly what is being done, when it's going to be done, and how it's going to be done, and any issues for the residents that they need to be aware of regarding parking, any use of their flushing, that type of thing when the contractor's working. So more information to come on that. There's going to be more coordination, more information as we coordinate with that contractor. So stay tuned on that.
And just to piggyback on
Please.
that, so the rest of Fifth Avenue, the plan is that once from Maine to Madison is done, then, and hopefully by the fall, we're gonna go forward with Madison to Ocean Avenue and do the same. Completely replace the sewers, and we have a grant in place already for service.
Yeah, just for clarity, the sewer construction itself is being paid for and bonded through the sewer utility. The resurfacing of the street, sidewalk repairs, handicap ramps, curb replacement is all being done through a DOT grant. And that's the similar fashion in which the phases 1 and 2 of the sewer program was done over the last several years. So that this is just a continuation with Fifth Avenue having been left out, trying to complete phase 2 of that sewer replacement program.
And one thing worth repeating, and both of my council members mentioned this in their comments, the original intent was, by the prior administration, was to line this particular stretch of sewers, and this council reverse dried on that and said we don't want lining, we want to make sure we are replacing 100-year-old sewers. So that did delay the process. We could move forward much earlier if we wanted to start lining certain areas of the sewers. I think we all unanimously agreed that was not appropriate for homeowners in that section of street roadway. Okay, we'll move to resolutions. Item 12. There are no consent agenda resolutions, so we'll move to individual resolutions. The first item is 2025-214, award of bid for Newark Avenue concession. You may recall in the last meeting, there have been no bidders, and we had to rebid. Once again, there were no bidders that met the criteria, which included a minimum bid threshold. So we do have a handful of entities interested in this concession. I believe we will have someone in place fairly soon, only because people have expressed interest. They just did not want to pay the minimum price that was in our RFP. So we will work very diligently in the next few days to talk to those potential bidders and determine who we can enlist to serve the Newark Avenue concessions.
Mr. Mayor, am I right that one of those is the same concessionaire that left? It's the same business that left, correct? Am I right?
That is one of the.
But there's more than that?
That's the one official bid, isn't it?
I can't even call it an official bid. They did put together a bid, but they did not meet the bid criteria. So they did put together a bid, but others didn't put together a bid, but evidence that they were interested, and they're kind of all in the same pool. So we have to talk to them, find out who's going to meet. We are now legally, if Mr. Campbell here, he'd be able to take us through this, but we are now in a position where we can negotiate. We have complied with bidding requirements. First bid, go through a second bid. Now we are in a position to basically negotiate with anyone we want. We've had folks suggest pop-up vendors. I don't think any of us want to try to manage that, but we do want to maximize coverage for this concession. So a little more to come, but again, we're hoping to resolve this hopefully within the next few days.
So we're not voting on, we're not voting on.
We are not, I am going to motion that we table
Greenblatt?
Yes.
Mr. Nowicki?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Gubatosi?
Yes. 2025-217, appointing summer seasonal gate guards. I'll make the motion that we approve.
Second.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Greenblatt?
Yes.
Mr. Nowicki?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Gubatosi?
Yes. I would like to ask one of my council members to make a motion for 2025-218, as I will need to recuse myself.
I'll make that motion. So I make a motion to approve 2025-218, approval of annual renewal of alcoholic beverage liquor license for Dorsey's LLC, TA Dorsey's Tavern.
Second.
Mr. Noble?
I actually live within 200 feet, and I've been advised by our attorney to abstain.
Ms. Greenblatt?
Yes.
Mr. Nowicki?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Gubatosi?
I also live within 200 feet, and I will abstain as well. Thank you. Regarding 2025-219, I once again will ask one of my colleagues to make a motion on this item.
Okay, this was for the 2025-219, approval to add LED lighting to a single aerator in Fletcher Lake for a trial period. This was a workshop at our last meeting. The Fletcher Lake Commission did a presentation, and I've done a little more research, and it's not uncommon to have these fountains lighted at night. Spring Lake has it, Belmar has it. The Neptune side of their lake commission has already approved it, and many neighbors, I've spoke to many people, and they do like the idea of it. And it is a trial period up to 6 months, and they're going to assess it after that to see if there's any ill effects whatsoever. So I don't know if anybody has any comments or on this, or otherwise I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution 2025-19.
Second.
What did I say? Oh my goodness, I do this all the time. I don't know. My apologies. 2025-219.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Greenblatt?
So I would, I've been on the fence about this because as an environmentalist, I would say that I would not like to see lights in the lake. I guess lighting can impact the wildlife, it can impact the health of the lake and so forth. But this is a very minimal amount of lighting, and I would opt to vote yes on this. And just for the record, I hope also that the lights don't stay on for too long, because I think the longer the lights are on, the more impact it has on the wildlife. And furthermore, just from a little bit of research, the color of light makes a difference as well. So a warm, either an amber or an orange lighting would have less of a negative effect. So that would be my recommendation, but I would vote yes.
Mr. Nowicki?
Yeah, I would also just comment that we should probably put some guardrails, if you would, on this. What time, define a little more clearly on this trial period, exactly what time are the lights going to be on, what color they're going to be, who's going to manage that, and then what are they looking for, how are they going to be evaluating any effects of this, and who are they going to report that to the commission, and I would say back to this council. And I am a little concerned about it becoming a precedent, but I do also see the aesthetic feature of it, and it could be, as long as it doesn't impact any, wildlife, I'd vote yes.
Mr. Weber?
I'm gonna vote yes, but also make a statement. First, I learned something from the workshop, which was good. Learned some things there. I'm very happy that this is just for 6 months, because that's a very manageable trial period and fair, I think. One thing I just wanna, people think about going forward, a lot of times this was called the fountain, and when you research something like this, you come up with the fountain stuff. The fountain, this is an aerator in a lake, in a natural lake, maybe kind of unnatural lake, but I think we're trying to make it as natural as possible.
the individuals who spoke to us at the last meeting, providing, the positives of moving forward. Based upon their presentation, based on whatever research I could conduct on my own, I kept coming up with, we're balancing largely aesthetics. It looks really nice, and residents who view the lake, visitors who view it, passers-by, like lights on the lake, and it looks pretty in the, with the area. However, I continue to find issues that cause concern. I'm not saying, yes is the incorrect vote. I just could not get myself comfortable with potential negative impact on the lake ecosystem, with the potential impacts on algae. Yes, some shades of light are, I think Ms. Councilwoman Greenblatt said, less than the negative, but there's still, to some degree, in my mind at least, a negative. I think there might be negative issues regarding ambient lighting. And we heard if you have these lights, that might be an incentive to run the aerators later into the evening. And we had heard that there were some residents who were already raising concerns about the noise of the aerators. So if we're running them potentially longer, I think that could be a challenge. So what I'm very happy to hear is that the council wants to put guardrails around the process, talk to the Silver Lake Fletcher Lake individuals, just to make sure that they're using the right shades of lighting and so forth. And I'll also be very anxious to see what the results are of this trial period after 6 months. But I'm still going to vote no.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I am back. I can now. Item 2025-220, approval to submit a grant application and execute a grant contract with the New Jersey Department of Transportation for the improvements to Ocean Park Avenue project. I'll make a motion.
Ms. DeNoble? Yes. Ms. Greenblatt?
So I'm going to vote yes, but I also just want to comment that this is sort of an extension of the plan for the sewer system infrastructure upgrades. So this is a grant for, I think it's the DOT, Department of Transportation grant, and that's in order to secure funding for surfacing for Ocean Park, and that will be very likely the next street that we'll go to after the avenue.
And on that note, we're experiencing some sewer problems on Ocean Park currently. Our DPW folks have been, all over that sewer system. I think they've identified certainly one and maybe one or two other problem areas. So we'll be moving forward as quickly as we can on replacing those sewers. But in the interim, we've got some hopefully strong preventive measures to avoid any challenges for those residents.
Mr. Nowicki?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Gubitosi?
Yes. 2025-221, authorizing a contract for playground equipment for the Recreation Center playground through Educational Services Commission of New Jersey Cooperative Contract Vendor, MRC, Inc., through a very lengthy code that I won't. But this is basically spending $160,000 or so rounding on brand new playground equipment to really upgrade our rec center playground, largely covered by over $600,000 of grant funding. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Ms. DeNoble?
Yes.
Ms. Greenblatt?
Yes.
Mr. Nowicki?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Gubitosi?
Yes. 2025-222, authorizing purchase of recreation center playground surfacing through State of New Jersey contract 16 Fleet 00131. Make a motion to approve.
Second. Ms. DeNoble?
Yes.
Ms. Greenblatt?
Yes.
Mr. Nowicki?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Gubitosi?
Yes. Following up on Ms. Genevieve's presentation earlier on affordable housing, we have resolution 2025-223, resolution to endorse the Housing Element and Fair Share Plan, HEFSP. I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. DeNoble?
Yes.
Ms. Greenblatt?
Yes.
Mr. Nowicki?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Gubitosi?
Yes. 2025-224, authorizing a modification of fees for suburban consulting engineers to include the additional scope for the Sylvan Lake Technical Assistance application. We basically had two sets of fees, one we've already approved, there's another 15,000 that was coming in, and this is Mr. Councilman Nowicki's effort and Councilwoman Greenblatt's effort to just consolidate these into one payment, or one scope. So I will make a motion to approve.
Second. Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Greenblatt?
Yes.
Mr. Nowicki?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Gubatosi?
Yes. As Councilman Nowicki explained earlier around the Fifth Avenue sanitary sewer challenges we faced, and we're moving forward, but we put this on the agenda hoping we might be able to move forward more quickly. I'm going to make a motion, however, that we table 2025-225, the award of contract, the award of contract for Fifth Avenue sanitary sewer improvements phase 1.
Second?
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Greenblatt?
Yes.
Mr. Nowicki?
I just want to comment that I think the administration, we could do a little bit better on getting these things more timely for our bonding and making sure that we have this lined up so we don't run into this in the future. So I would say yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Gubatosi?
Yes. 2025-226, the bill list for June 18th, 2025. Are there comments or observations here?
Mine were answered. Thank you very much. Sean and I have some questions,
That's right.
but we got that resolved.
That's right. You know, the only other question that I had was, on page 2 of the bills list, there was, payment made to Fernandez Construction in the amount of $200,000 and change, and I just wondered if that was from work that was done before this year? Was this Park Place, the one block that was done? Or is this for going forward?
This is
Yeah.
for work done, I believe, years ago.
Okay, and
Which
we're
is
paying.
pretty remarkable, the guy didn't come here with
Okay.
Well, but
weapons trying to get
sometimes
it
when we
$200,000.
pay bills this way, like, they didn't actually bill us.
Well, they billed us.
They bill us.
Yeah.
And this is the Fernandez Construction, who
Yes.
is gonna be doing the surfacing work for that.
Right, and they weren't gonna do it until we paid them.
Oh,
We were like,
sounds-
what do you mean we owe you money? And then we found out we owed them $200,000.
Okay.
That's a lot of money.
While we're on the topic of this bill list, I know Councilwoman Greenblatt, you raised the question, and Mr. Doherty, you have resolved the question, but it was regarding the purchase of dog
What
poop
minutes?
mitts or butt mitts.
Mutt mitts.
Would you give a brief overview to the public, just to let them know what the issue was and how you resolved it?
So, one of the line items that Councilwoman Greenblatt picked up on was the purchase of mutt mitts for $1,379, and the shipping of those mutt mitts for $239, which is insane. So, unfortunately, these have already been delivered, they're already out in use, so we have to pay this bill. But going forward, we're simply gonna use Amazon to purchase these at a much reduced cost. And because we're Amazon Prime members, we will get free shipping.
Said it's $200, thanks.
Yeah. Good
Thank you,
job.
thank you both.
Plus the
More than
cost-
my pay grade.
Yeah, they were not cheap mutt mitts.
These are very expensive. mutt
Yeah,
mitts.
so, and I think the worse they are, the less will be taken. 'Cause,
Right.
yeah, they're very high
Oh,
quality.
so we're not going with the high quality ones.
Yeah,
And
well-
this identified the real problem is that somebody goes in and takes like 50 or 100 at
Yes.
a time, because when I had a dog, well, I mean, I'd go out there and I'd see the DPW guys put in a new one, and like 2 days later it was empty, and I was like, what is going on?
Right, they're just too nice.
I want cameras on Main Avenue, the lifeguard stand, on that one, so I find out who was taking the.
Right.
I'm serious.
Yeah,
As long as it's not Richard.
yeah, it's for
It's definitely
emergency
not.
purposes. Okay,
All
thank
right.
you, thank you.
We will move to item
Somebody second that?
Vote on
Yes.
the bill list.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Second,
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Greenblatt?
Yes.
Mr. Nowicki?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Gubatosi?
Yes. Item 13 on the agenda, announcements, there are none. Item 14A, the administrator report, Mr. Doherty.
Yes, sir. Mayor and Council, as you may remember, last meeting, someone from the public came up and asked about the invoices for the attorney for the last few years, Eric Bernstein. I just wanted to report that Mr. Bernstein was paid $238,000 between 2022 and 2024. He's also continuing to bill us. There's an invoice outstanding for about $9,500. We are disputing those charges. We're going through attorney fee arbitration with the Office of Attorney Ethics. We are putting all the paperwork together now to send it on. To ensure that we're not spending a lot of money on this, the only cost to the borough is one check for $50 to the Disciplinary Oversight Committee. So we will send our dispute on to them regarding this invoice and hopefully come to a resolution. And what we're disputing in the invoice is the work done for fact-finding regarding the Local 152 contract.
Can I ask a question about this? Are we only disputing what's left, this $9,000 that he's invoicing us for, not that you said 228 pages?
238,000, yes, sir.
And then that was for 23 and 24 collectively?
22, 23, and 24.
Okay.
But that was for Oprah's and other items as well, correct? Or was it just for negotiations?
It was for all of them, but a significant amount for negotiations and again for fact finding. So if we are successful in our dispute for the 9,000, we are going to pursue the availability, if there is one, to claw back some of those dollars that were paid out prior to this administration, the previous administration, for that type of fact finding and mediation that was never necessary to begin.
Thank you.
Does it put us at risk for a lawsuit?
No, that's a great question. So if we do not go through the attorney fee arbitration, then Mr. Bernstein could sue us for not paying this invoice. And then obviously that would cost us legal fees. But for $50, it seems worthwhile to go and see if we can get at least a few $1,000s knocked off that $9,500. And if we can take that and look at the other line items and the other bills, to Councilman Weber's point, and if there's additional fact-finding in previous years, to go after that money back as well and try to claw that back to the taxpayers.
What would we base that on? Just like we didn't find any facts, or that it's just an unnecessary thing to bill us for? I mean, what's the...
That was an unnecessary line item to bill us for.
Okay.
And there's a panel made up of a couple of attorneys, some members of the public that adjudicate this.
Can you bring to that, whenever you go before this panel, like tell them what the total amount of all this, the arbitration with the labor union, would that all add up into the end? Like, I think when you compare that to what this number you just gave us, it might make the panel think about it.
Yes, sir. Second thing I wanted to bring everyone's attention is an update for the demolition of the church at 319 Lorraine. This is from our engineering firm, CME, who is spearheading the management of the project. Environmental remediation, the asbestos abatement, and lead paint abatement is complete for 317 Lorraine Ave, the parsonage, the house next door. 317 Lorraine Ave demolition permit was submitted today to the building department. Tomorrow, the offices are closed, as everyone knows, for Juneteenth, but we'll issue that permit to them on Friday, so they'll hopefully start demolition on Monday, which is the 23rd.
Matt, on that point, are we posting something on the website to inform residents about the demolition?
Yes, we'll do everything that I'm reading now today. We'll have Amy Hall post to the department website, then the councilman Nowicki has created. 319 Lorraine, the church itself, asbestos materials such as pipe insulation and floor tiles are removed and contained in accordance with state requirements. Removal of asbestos roof material is currently underway. Once asbestos is fully abated and a letter of completion submitted to the state, a demolition permit application for the church will be submitted. We can keep the public up to date on that as well. That'll probably happen sometime next week. And then finally, tomorrow, folks will start seeing a chain link fence surrounding the property getting installed. Again, that should be going up tomorrow.
So when this gets posted, this information you just shared, when that gets posted on the website, hopefully along with the demolition schedule, which was from the demolition company, does that go on the homepage? We do have now a location for infrastructure projects, so it would be great to start using that, so people know where to go to find the information.
Will do. And I also think it'd be worthwhile, prior to the church demolition, to just go out and flyer the neighborhoods that are going to be most affected by it. You know, maybe the 300 block, the 200 block, the 400 block of Lorraine, some of the side streets, and then that portion of Britton Avenue that abuts the church between the 300 block as well.
Yeah, I did discuss with Amy the website, and so under Borough Hall, there is what's called projects, it's called infrastructure projects, and the information that's going to be inside, there will be all the different projects broken down. That's the work underway. However, the notifications, like the flyer that we did pass out, you can find that right on the front page, on the home page, as you scroll down. And so that's, her intent is to put notices to the community on there that are active. But all the documentation of all the different projects would reside underneath that infrastructure project tab underneath Borough Hall. So there'll be like a library of all the projects. So I think once that comes together, it'll be very intuitive where and how to find things.
All right, and lastly, if you're traveling south on Route 71, the bridge across the Shark River is going to be in the up position for what seems a long time. So take Memorial Drive into the 35 if you're heading south.
That's your new route home.
Well, I try to take the ocean.
That's a good choice.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
sir. Okay, we finished the administrative report, moved to 14B, mayor and council reports. I'll start to my far left with Councilman Nowicki.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, the police department report on June 7th. A 50-year-old female from Ocean Grove was arrested by Patrolman Daniel Crow for outstanding contempt of court warrants in the Bradley Beach Municipal Court and Long Branch Municipal Court. She was processed and turned over to the Long Branch Police Department. On June 10th, a 23-year-old male from Asbury Park was arrested and charged with theft of a bicycle from Bradley Beach. Mr. Dietz was stopped in Asbury Park and was in possession of the bicycle he had taken from a residence on 4th Avenue. Detective Gregory Pancha handled the arrest. On June 14th, a 19-year-old male from Neptune was arrested and charged with simple assault, possession of a weapon, and possession of a weapon for an unlawful purpose, stemming from an incident on the 600 block of Evergreen. Sergeant Michael Tardillo, Patrolman Ian Ambrose made the arrest. Officers also investigated 3 motor vehicle accidents and conducted several motor vehicle stops for various motor vehicle violations during this period. The fire department, I get that report monthly, so I will only be reporting at the end of the month for the fire department. And the first day, last council meeting, I actually reread a previous one and actually printed the wrong one. So the chief, corrected me and grabbed me on the street and said, "Paul, did you have a problem with my email?" And I said, "Yes, I did. I printed the wrong one." So he wanted to make sure it wasn't his problem. So I'm going to go back to the June 5th report first. For the operational period ending June 5th, the squad responded to 21 day calls and 18 night calls for a total of 39 calls, 26 for medical, 13 for fire calls. The squad conducted 1 drill for the safety and education of the membership. The squad provided medical overwatch for the Memorial Day Parade and Festival, as well as marching and attending the ceremony around the park. The squad provided medical overwatch for the concert around the park. The squad provided additional personnel and ambulances in support of the Avon 5K. The squad congratulates member Kyle Hagerman on his graduation from New Jersey City University and Bachelor of Science degrees in Fire Science and nation security. The squad requested no mutual aid for the operational period. The squad had fulfilled 100% of their assignments in this operational period, and they are still looking for volunteers for the first aid. Current report. For the operational period ending June 18th, the squad responded to 21 calls, 18 night calls, for a total of 39 calls. 26 were for medical, 13 for fire calls. The squad conducted 1 drill for the safety and education of the membership. The squad provided medical overwatch. I printed the same one.
They're not gonna be happy.
They're not gonna be happy.
That happens.
That happens. Okay, I caught myself.
Okay.
So, that's interesting. I think it is dated June 18th. So anyways, I'll report on that one in the next period.
To be continued.
As far as Sylvan Lake Commission, they are actually meeting, I met tonight over in Avon, because we use the facility here, and work is continuing to move forward with the commission and with the various projects. And there's a technical advisory committee meeting between the borough and the Littoral Society and the borough of Avon on Friday, and so that will be the update to the overall consultants, et cetera, and trying to advance the projects going forward. More information on that at the next meeting.
Thank you, Councilman. Council President Tenoble.
Okay. Shade Tree has a meeting next month. Tourism has a meeting next month. But Amy Hall, the director, would like me to remind everyone that Country Line Dance starts June 24th at 6 p.m. The Beatles concert is the 25th, next week at 7 in the park. And opera is the 30th at the beach. And the new takeout signs have been placed on the boardwalk. Also, there was no Board of Ed meeting, but I do want to share with everybody, the mayor and council attended the graduation last night. It was amazing. They had slideshows, they had music, they had awards. In fact, our own Nicole Browning, this dispatcher that works here in town, was inducted into the Hall of Fame. She was from the class of 1990. She graduated from Bradley Beach Elementary School. So congratulations, Nicole. And I'll also like to congratulate Bridget Devane and John Weber, because their daughter, Nora, was valedictorian. So congratulations, Nora. And that completes my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council President. Councilwoman Greenwald.
First is recreation. The Recreation Board met June 9th, when the borough hosted an information session for the rec board with our engineer Ben Matlack of CME and BA Matt Doherty. Many thanks for presenting the site improvements planned in early fall and an opportunity for feedback. And thanks to the rec board for a fun-filled Father's Day kickball event this past Friday. It was a great way to kick off Father's Day weekend. Rec Summer Camp begins onboarding its staff on June 23rd. Camp begins Monday, June 30th. And a reminder about ongoing events. The Senior Club meets June 25th, noon at Piazzi Center. The group will then reconvene in September. Summer Bocce League registration opened yesterday, June 16th. Registration is still open. Summer League will run from July 8th to August 14th. Go to the recreation webpage to sign up. Salted Soul Yoga posts a full schedule of activities this month. Check the calendar on the recreation webpage for dates. The Recreation Board's next meeting is Monday, July 14th, 6:30 p.m. at the Rec Center. And now, the Fletcher Lake Commission met Thursday, June 12th. Thanks to everyone who participated in the lake cleanup. Many bags of waste and debris were collected, and it was a great community event for both Bradley Beach and Ocean Grove. Another cleanup will be scheduled for early fall. Wildlife enthusiasts take note. There have been sightings of pickerel and bass at the lake by Bradley Beach DPW. Fletcher Lake is indeed coming back. The next commission meeting is scheduled for Thursday, July 16th at 6 p.m. The Arts Council has not met since this last council meeting. The Arts Council recently hosted Summer Palette, an art exhibit at Posh Real Estate, which included an artist reception and a book talk of member Lori Crimes' recently published Chasing Bruce. Many thanks to Mark Posh. I hope you had a chance to see the performance One Sweet Dream, Abbey Road and Beyond
Beach Library, the Arts Council is hosting a children's art workshop entitled Color My World, Tuesday, July 29th at 4 p.m. for students in grades 2 through 6. And mark your calendar for the pop-up arts exhibit, August 23rd, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the James Bradley. More details ahead. The next Arts Council meeting will be an in-person brainstorming session, date to be determined. And that's my report.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I want to take everybody back to June 7th. That Saturday was a very busy little day in our wonderful little town. The Environmental Commission was busy doing, they dreaded knotweed, the invasive species. They were removing the Japanese knotweed from the maritime forest. But as we did that, people that were cleaning Fletcher Lake came through the forest and they were really looking for garbage. And as both sets of volunteers were doing that, back in the distance we could hear the fire sirens going off because we know that the food pantry pickup was happening. And that, of course, involves dozens of people in this town, and there was probably dozens more volunteers at the pantry. So it was like everybody in town was volunteering, and it was this hot, sweaty, kind of wet day. It was very interesting. But so helping us out in the forest, the Kennys who are here, so thank you for that. They did a great job there. Every member of the Environmental Commission, and I will say, including our newest member, who her first meeting was on July, whatever the Monday, first Monday in June. So it was just a few days before, and then that Saturday she was out helping us remove the knotweed. Of course, Liz Hernandez, leader of the Environmental Commission, Tracy Davison, Rich Davison, Catherine Batco. I'm probably forgetting a bunch of people, but a lot of people came out, and it was a great day of volunteering. I will say the school graduation is great. Of course, Councilman Nowicki, he was excused, but I do recommend you go because it's a good time. Like, just clear your schedule that evening. It's fun, and it's nice that they invited the council. It's really great. It's great to see everybody there. I have just something to say about the logo. You know, we kind of did this whole thing with the logo, and we've kind of already used the logo in a few different places, but I think there's still more work that needs to be done, and I'm just gonna grab you and grab the administrator and some other people and just kind of get it across the finish line, because there's actually, like, picking the actual graphic, though, that's just part of it. I think there's a lot of other work that has to be done, and we should decide if we want to, go out, pay somebody to do that. If it can be done in-house, if we have somebody in-house that can do that, that'd be great too. So I'm just letting you know that is coming. Finalize the logo stuff, and that is my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. So my report, I'm going to cover a few things. Actually, I've got not only I, but hopefully many of you will have it busy next week, because I've been list off a number of dates, starting with library board meeting on Monday, June 23rd, 5:15 at the library. Clearly not mandatory attendance, but the public is welcome. June 23rd, Monday. Then on Friday the 27th, we have the Julie Schreck Maritime Forest Celebration planned. That will be held at 6 p.m. at the gazebo, last gazebo before you head into Ocean Grove, right on the boardwalk. We're going to be adding new signage. The signage will not only have a little brief bio of former Mayor Julie Schreck with a picture of her. The Maritime Horse is named after the former mayor, but there's no detail specifically in our signage about either the mayor and or the history of the Maritime Forest. What we do capture currently are species of wildlife that we can view there. But now we're going to add smaller signage with a picture of the mayor, former mayor, brief biography of her role, and a brief history of the Maritime Forest. So we'll be celebrating that. Members of the Schreck family plan to attend. I believe her daughter Molly might be able to attend as well and even speak. Refreshments will be served. Now that's Friday the 27th. On Saturday the 28th, very exciting Mayor's Wellness Walk will occur at 9 a.m. At the boardwalk at the Fifth Avenue gazebo. We will meet at 9 a.m. And the Jersey Shore University Medical Center physical therapists will teach strength training using resistance bands. I personally have trouble getting those bands open, but I'm sure a lot of you might really enjoy the exercise that will come with that. So again, 25th Beatles, well, 23rd Library Board, 25th Beatles, 27th Julie Schreiber Maritime Forest, 28th Mayor's Wellness Forum. And I also just wanted to comment that the graduation was fascinating. The kids were great. It was a phenomenal program, and the proud parents sitting to my right, Mr. Weber, was giving thumbs up to the kids and taking videos and pictures. See, John, we probably had a better time than all the kids. But it was a lot of fun. So that concludes my report. Now we'll open it up. Item 15 on the agenda: public comments and questions. Public comments, questions? Yes, sir, Rick.
Ray Castellano, 604 Bradley Boulevard. So last meeting I was here to talk about the white wooden rectangular boxes on the beach. After leaving the meeting, I had some more homework to do, and I'm back to talk about that. So I hate reading, really it is not my style, but there's a lot of material, and to make the 5 minutes, that's what I have to do, so I apologize for that. Okay, the objective is to request the council to create an ordinance to improve the procedure to assign beach lockers, which from here on out I will call beach storage boxes. The beach storage box issue frustrates many Bradley residents. The existing process has loopholes that prevent residents from moving up on the list. Beach storage boxes have been given to new residents that were not on the waiting list ahead of residents on the list for a number of years. Major improvements are needed. The borough needs an ordinance too, and by the way, I have a copy of this for everyone. No notes are required. The borough needs an ordinance too. 1. Publish existing beach storage box assignments and all existing waiting lists on the borough website. The list would include the name, city, and state of the person or persons that are assigned or waiting for beach storage boxes. 2. Limit residents to 1 beach storage box per resident or non-resident. 3. Develop a process for allowing current assignees to move their beach storage box from one location to another. 4. Build additional beach storage boxes for residents currently on the waiting list. Winter storage limits in the parking lot have been used as justification to prevent this, but other towns store their beach storage boxes against the boardwalks. 5. Permit residents to purchase beach storage boxes from the borough. Residents would incur a one-time cost for material and labor to build the beach storage boxes. 6. Develop a process to initially assign and validate the ongoing assignment of beach storage boxes to handicapped individuals. And 7 is prioritize beach badge storage boxes for residents only. If you notice, only the first 6 items can be done. They have nothing to do with the resident and non-resident issue. Okay. Van Ness versus Borough of Deal, 1978, and Neptune City versus Borough of Avon, 1961 legal cases do not apply to beach storage boxes. The Deal case addresses non-resident access to Deal Casino Beach Club, and the Avon case addresses charging non-residents higher beach tag fees. Beach storage boxes are not beach lockers. Beach lockers can be interpreted as changing rooms with toilets and showers and would apply to the Van Ness case mentioned above. Asbury Park, Lock Harbor, and Wildwood Crest give priority beach storage box access to residents. Beach storage boxes are only available to Lock Harbor and Wildwood Crest residents, and Asbury non-residents are grandfathered, but can no longer obtain a beach storage box going forward. While it's exciting to talk about Main Street improvements and extending the Bradley Pavilion, residents care more about basic summertime issues. The season is short, and that's why residents on the wait list care more about beach storage boxes than most other things happening in town. Please consider this request to help restore the trust between residents and the borough that apply to beach storage box assignments. Thank you. So, here's the document. Any questions?
Thank you for doing the additional research.
You're welcome.
Now we get to turn it over to our attorney.
Yeah, I mean, people are doing it. And, you know, when I used to work, and, you know, you're like the board in my company, they would look at the attorneys and say, make it happen. And if you can't make it happen, find somebody that can make it happen. I mean, that's really how I see it. The process is broken. There are loopholes that, you know, people have seen, they have observed, doesn't, you know, it's not good, and it's gotta be fixed. And, you know, by really, we can get item 7, then you know, we can really fix it more quickly. Thank you.
We will definitely look at it, thank you. Other questions or comments on anything, the agenda or not the agenda? Ms. Kepler.
Beth Kepler, 504 Central Avenue, here in town. First, I'd like to thank Mr. Doherty for his report tonight in regard to Mr. Bernstein. I find it obscene the amount of money when totaled that was allocated to that firm, given what we know in history, which I won't go into, but I think we're all aware. But not just about the labor issues, but specifically to the Oprah issues. We all know the double dipping scheme he had going appearingly with, you know, in my opinion, of the Oprah, where he was our Oprah attorney. He was denying Oprah requests, getting paid to review them and to deny them, and then subsequently going to court and getting paid to go to court to defend them. And then the judge was overturning it because he would lose because he wasn't following the Oprah. And if he had just, you know, if he was really an Oprah attorney who understood Oprah law, he would have granted and not redacted the records that he ended up having to unredact when he lost in court, all with our tax money. So he was getting paid on both sides. How convenient. And I think that that is something else that I think the Office of Attorney Ethics should evaluate. And last week, the last meeting, Council President DeNoble brought up a very important point in her council report at the end of the meeting, and I think it may have gotten lost in between the Moby Max and the ice cream truck and the beach lockers and all the fun stuff, that there was a $12,000 misallocation identified of the shade tree money that we can add to the ever-growing list of financial improprieties that we've identified that have been going on. And I'd like to ask this council body if, in regard to the letter that was received from the State of New Jersey Office of the Comptroller dated August 5th of 2024, there was 24 documents that were requested by Kevin Walsh, the acting state comptroller, that were supposed to be received by his office of August 23rd of 2024. Most people characterize that as an investigation. Larry Fox said it was an inquiry and tried to make it seem like it was routine. When you look at the 24 documents and different information that was requested, especially in context to where we stand today in light of the report that was given earlier tonight, this is clearly an investigation. It could be easily termed that. Do we know where that stands? Will that be reported back to this borough? What came of that? Because this is a very serious thing going on, and I don't understand it. I don't mean to keep coming up here, but I'm not going to go away until we find out what is exactly going on here. So I'm not with you, and that's my frustration that you're sensing is not with this council body. Thank God that the borough got it right and voted correctly this year, because we wouldn't have gotten the information that we've gotten so far. But we're only 6 months into your 4-year term there, and you know, I would love to talk about, like, you know, drinking and outdoor drinking and who's going to be playing at the band and the fireworks and all that fun stuff. But we've got serious business here that cannot be just swept under the rug. And I think part of the reason that these agencies are ignoring us is because there's only a very limited number of people. Everybody's concerned and everybody's paying taxes, but there's not that many people that are coming up here and voicing their concern. And I'm not saying that these other issues are not important that people are bringing up, but it would be very helpful to all of our interests if these agencies were hearing from all of us collectively, because it's easy to ignore one or two people, but we wrote a letter and 300 people signed it, and we were ignored. And the council body wrote a letter and signed it unanimously and brought it to the Attorney General's office, and you were ignored. And our legislators at the state and county level were reached out to, and we were ignored. The DCA ignored us, and they fined you. And that just doesn't make sense to me. The math ain't mathing. So.
I wish the DCA had ignored us instead of finding us.
Right, so can you tell me, please, I didn't mean to spend all my time just talking, but if you could please answer, if you haven't received this report from the comptroller in regard to what their investigation or inquiry or whatever this letter was from August 5th of 2024, listing 24 very detailed specific documents that they asked for from the prior administration, what was the outcome of that?
I don't know the outcome of it. In fact, I'm trying to track down a lot of the activity that occurred in 24 when the council was not made privy to that. But I will tell you and the public that we are even currently having ongoing dialogue with the comptroller's office. So they're not ignoring us. We're in contact. I just need to track down some of last year's correspondence. We're also creating some new correspondence for them as well.
Could you ask them what the outcome of that is? And maybe,
I mean, I can tell you the stuff that they were requesting was sent to them, and it wasn't inquiry. It wasn't it wasn't anything against the borough. That much I can tell you.
okay, so all of this was sent?
Yes,
So
it was.
That's good, we at least know that. Thank
Yes,
you
it
for
was.
that.
They give you a date, you have to send it by that date, or you're supposed to send it by that date, which it was done.
But what about things like that were like bank reconciliations that we know were never, we didn't have bank reconciliations, so how did you send
Anything that was
documents
available.
that we had? So not everything
It
may have been
basically,
sent.
it's handled the same way that an Oprah request is handled. If we have the records, they are sent.
All right,
If
so
we
then
don't-
to be specific, everything we had was
Oh,
sent, but not
absolutely.
everything that they
Absolutely.
requested
I-
was available.
Beth, that was a year ago. Off the top of my head, I don't recall.
Well, I wasn't trying to put you on the spot,
No,
you
no,
jumped
no,
in,
no,
so
I
that's
know,
why
I know, no,
that's
no,
why
that's
I
fine, but
clarified.
most of it I can tell you was sent.
Most of it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because
There
before
might have
it
been a
was
few
all of
things,
it,
but
but now it's
yep.
most, okay.
So
So if we could
So
just
Beth, we're
find
over
out
our
what.
5 minutes, but we're continuing, and as soon as information is available, then we can share with you.
Okay, but specifically, this letter is the one that I'm interested in, if you could ask them what the
Track-
outcome of that was.
We're gonna track it down.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Yes, Mr. Bartolome.
Rick Bartolome, 116 Newark. Following up, I think, on my inquiry 2 weeks ago. A, did we ever find a report about all the wires that were on the telephone poles? And, you know, they supposedly an audit was done on that. I think Councilman Nowicki had said that he thought he had seen something. And second part of that, I think, Matt, you were gonna possibly talk to Ocean Grove to see, because that was supposedly they had done the work and gotten all the utilities to take down the extra wires in their town.
And I don't recall that.
Well, okay.
I'll be happy to talk to him.
I think it was Ocean Grove, if I remember correctly,
Yeah.
that's what prompted my initial inquiry a year ago or 2 years ago, whatever it was, that they had done it. That's it.
And there was some sort of a survey done, or Eric, do you recall that? Of our polls, I thought somebody did.
There is a map showing poles and some inventory, and I think it might have been CME who did it at some point in time. So-
Kim Humphries had said she had responded that it was being done. And I don't know how complete it was.
Who was doing the survey of the, do you know who was doing it? Was it like
I think it was the
utility
engineer. I think it was the engineer.
engineer?
Was that for?
I think it's,
Main
it
Street?
goes back like 2 years ago. No, I think it's all through the borough as far as poles that were identified.
Because each pole is different, one pole might be JCP&L, another pole might be Verizon, another pole might be Optimum.
I do vaguely recall there was some exercise, some effort made to take an inventory. I also vaguely recall that it was not action, but we'll try to track it down. I didn't have that on my to-dos, but I did have that. Other comments? Yes, sir, Mr. Cohen.
Thomas J. Colan, 612 Third Avenue. I'd like to echo one of the previous speakers on the Bernstein bills. I actually filed suit against the town because I was given documents that were 80 to 90% redacted. And it was very nerve-wracking, and the town did settle by paying my legal fees. So again, it's this kind of churning of the account. Charging to do the redactions, and then having to charge to then fight the lawsuit, and then having to pay me anyway. I mean, I'm so happy that this is getting out there because it's quite embarrassing. Fortunately, in that case, I paid my my retainer to the attorney, but the court does allow fee shifting for Open Public Records Act violations, so I was able to claw that back. But it's annoying because it doesn't serve the purposes of the OPA requirements. I do want to thank the mayor and council for making the changes on Fifth Avenue. Our sewer system doesn't need any more Band-Aids, but I think one point Mr. Nowicki I think should shout out to the folks is that when you do the new work like was done in phase 1 and phase 2, the homeowners get a curb stop cleanout, which they don't get if it's lined. Correct. So if they ever have a failure in their 100-year-old system, the work has to be done from their house all the way to the line in the road. So now, once we do these sewers, if they have a failure on their side of the curb stop, they only have to go that 25, 30 feet from the house to the curb stop, and also they don't need a road opening permit and bonding. So it's very important that we do it the right way, and I appreciate you doing that. And thanks for your inputs, Mr. Murphy.
Any other questions or comments in the room? We have a handful. Yeah, we have a handful on Zoom. Mia Mullen, questions or comments? Mia?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, now we can.
Okay, hi. I just wanted to go back up at the last meeting I mentioned about the music on the beach. You are absolutely right. It is on the sign. It's in the fine print, and I say that in air quotes if you can see me. It says earphones required. What I have to do is maybe research how they post it on other beaches, because teenagers, college kids, they're not seeing that. And that's just my opinion. But I would invite council, police, take a walk on the beach on any crowded Saturday, and there is just music all over the place. And it's a constant. At least on my beach at 4th Avenue. I would imagine it's like that at the other beaches. So I just don't know how you say to somebody, oh, by the way, earphones are required. It's more like no music. And I don't know how to fix that without it being some extraordinary expense. Because our signs are very nice, they look nice, but there's a lot of fine print on it. I almost wish the music part was up where it's the no smoking part. Like no smoking, no music. Then it would just click with the average person. Oh, I can't smoke and I can't have music. Anyway, I really want to see how they post it at other beaches, but again, it would be an expense to change that, and I don't know how you police for it, but it's very uncomfortable to say to somebody, a 20-year-old, could you please turn your music off? I usually say turn it down, and they get irritated because they don't know that there's a sign. They really don't understand that sign. And the other thing I wanted to ask as a question, has there been consideration for how the lines are going to be when they resurface courts at the rec center? It's desperate need to have that done. I forget the timing on all of that, but when I've played there now in recent weeks, and there's former tennis players on these pickleball courts, they all agree that, you know, to put a tennis court down there would just not be used. And it's so confusing the way we have the positioning between the tennis court and the one tennis court and the 4 pickleball courts. It's different than actually how it is in other towns or other public courts that use tennis courts as pickleball courts too. So I really
Mia, I just want to let you know that the feedback that we got from the recreation board and the recreation director is that there are a lot of people who do want to play tennis. And
Of course they don't want to play it on a pickleball court. That's the point.
well, that people will be playing tennis and that it will be lined for tennis and pickleball. That's the bottom line.
It's a waste.
Ms. Mullen, the board, this rec center board, and Councilwoman Greenblatt is the liaison to the board. They met on this. We very, very pointedly said, you know, there are tennis players saying they won't play, and we're on pickleball line courts, and we're being told by the rec board and by the rec director, no, that's incorrect. Many tennis players are using these courts with the pickleball lining, and given that we don't have a lot of space, we don't have area to, you know, hold one tennis court separate, the decision.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just, and I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I bet none of them play tennis. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. If you ask any tennis player, they will tell you it's just, it's.
Exactly what she's just saying. The rec board says there's lots of people that play tennis and would like to play tennis and will play tennis over, it sounds like there's two types of tennis players out there, and you and Jim Shishias are one, and these folks spoke to a bunch of others, and you know, this is what government does. You talk to people and you figure out most people, what the most people want.
So we're trying, Ms. Mullen, but this is an example. We heard you, we heard Mr. Shishias, we heard others, but we also heard others saying, no, there are many people who will play tennis on these courts, and given our lack of space, we just don't have the capacity to have multiple courts.
Or give up the tennis court. They don't want to give up the option for tennis.
So, any other comments or questions? Okay.
No, that's it.
Ms. McGuire?
Actually, yeah, I need Shishia.
Sorry?
I need Shishia.
Well, I see Brigitte. I was just taking more.
Okay.
Brigitte McGuire, are you available?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi there. Just want to make a couple of comments. I too was someone who had a lawsuit based on Oprah's and about over 20 documents that were loaded with black ink redactions. They look like bar graphs if you turn them sideways. I believe I had all but 3 unredacted documents come out of that lawsuit. So it's crazy that he's fighting for this invoice to be paid and we're at risk for a lawsuit. You know, we all keep trying to move forward positively, but we have so much to fix in this town and are constantly reminded of how poorly things have been managed. The financial review by Mr. Ebenow confirmed for me that we do need investigations to happen, and far back. What else? We had a historic tax increase here a couple of years ago. Had a set of books that didn't match anywhere, and was basically like looking at 3 sets of books. How were we even able to come up with a number of that tax increase that we had when our numbers were so all over the place? It feels criminal. You know, there's people who couldn't stay and afford living here because of some of these tax increases. So it just confirms that Larry Fox had really no clue what he was doing during his term or even commenting tonight at the meeting. He comes scripted and makes no point at all. He spoke more tonight than ever as a mayor and expected answers he never gave as a mayor. Yes, I am furious with his behavior, but more so of the BS he brought to this town that doesn't allow us to move forward without the reminder of his terrible administration and professionals he milked our money for, to keep his holdovers doing nothing. I'm sorry, thank you for letting me vent, but this, we try to move forward and then we're reminded with who we still have to pay, putting us at risk for lawsuits, someone who didn't even get our employee contracts done. And then he shows up at these meetings and talks more than he ever even spoke to residents. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for hiring Mr. Evenow for this additional report on top of the audit we'll be waiting for. It helps put things in a clearer perspective of really how damaged our financials are. And I just I feel so much gratitude to where we're at today, that we actually have a mayor and a full council that really can move forward and work for all the good. And I feel so positive about that. And, thanks for letting me vent all the negative, but we are finally here, and it's a bumpy ride, I feel like, but we're here, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Shishius, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. I love the bills list. And if I remember correctly, it was November of 2022 that CME charged us, I think, $2,400 for a utility pole inventory. So I know it's a November, I'm pretty confident it's a November, a November bill list, and for some reason I think it's 2022. I'm trying to go through everything here and I can't find it, but I know they charged us, I think, $2,400 for a utility pole inventory.
Okay, thanks. We will follow up with that, Malak.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Just give her a prize if she's right.
It would be a present.
Let's put her on the budget.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, leaning forward so I can see Ms. Kepler. Seeing none, I will close the public comments and move to the item 16, executive session, in which we will discuss 301 Main Street, zoning appeal, Kingston versus Bradley Beach, and this is roughly, we estimate, it will take us a half an hour.
And the governing body will take no action when we return from executive session, so there'll be no issue. You're welcome, Mr. McConnell.
Thank you.
You have a second?
Second.
Mr. Noble? Yes. Ms. Greenblatt?
Yes.
Mr. Nowicki?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Gupta?
Greg, I gotta say.
You said, hey, you need your house. There will be a time, but I
Last meeting,
Yeah.